subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Synopsis. Ian traveled through the world of Harry Potter and became Harry Potter's younger brother. As soon as he opened his eyes, a green light attacked his face. At the moment of life and death, Ian bound the succubus system and began to break up his CP, Hermione. Both are pure-blood families in the wizarding world. Ian is more handsome than Ronald. I choose Ian. Ginny. Both are saviors. Ian is more handsome than Harry and stronger than Harry. I choose Ian. Fleur. Ian saved my sister. I choose him. It's normal, right? Harry and Ronald and Bill. No. Ian. Sorry, everyone. Chapter 1. Ian Potter, Manchester, 444, Lily Street, Stone District. Ian, we'll be able to go to Charterhouse School together soon. Hermione said expectantly, staring at the boy beside her. Ian looked up from his book, revealing a handsome and tender face. Under his red hair, his eyes were clear and bright. His lips were red and his teeth were white, and his features were as delicate as a classical sculpture. Ian reached out and rubbed the little girl's head, smiling gently. Yes, Hermione, we can go to school together. It's just that it's not Charterhouse School, it's Hogwarts. Ian was watching Shameless at home, but the TV suddenly exploded with a pop, and he gloriously traveled through time. He originally thought that he would travel through time to become the Ian with the same name and surname, and was even prepared to change the orientation of the original Ian. Unexpectedly, as soon as he opened his eyes, Ian was stunned by the words, "Don't hurt Harry and Ian. They are not the children in the prophecy." Before he could think for a while, the strange and familiar green light attacked him in the face. The threat of death made Ian instantly recall the memory of more than a year as a baby. Ian also understood that he had traveled through time, or reincarnated into the magical world of Harry Potter. His identity was still a character that did not exist in the original book. The youngest son of the Potter family, Harry Potter's twin brother, Ian Potter. Fortunately, his mother in this life, Lily, used her body to help them block the killing curse. But Ian was also thrown out of the house by the impact and fainted on the lawn, thus escaping Voldemort's pursuit. And his brother in this life, Harry Potter, because he was a legend himself, with the aura of the protagonist on his head, also successfully escaped the disaster and was rescued by Dumbledore, becoming the boy who survived the catastrophe, who could defeat Voldemort. On the other hand, Ian was in a more miserable situation, perhaps because of the butterfly effect. He did not wait for Dumbledore like Harry did. Not long after he landed on the lawn, he was taken as an ordinary child by passers-by and sent to an orphanage. Although Ian became an orphan, his parents were blessed with boundless magic power, and the succubus system was awakened. As long as you can make others fall in love, you can gain charm points in exchange for various magic items and skills. Isn't this a pure dating system? Thinking of the beautiful young ladies in the original book, Ian was deeply moved. The days in the orphanage were not as sad as imagined. With his handsome and soft appearance, Ian was easily forgiven no matter what he did, and he was like a fish in water in the orphanage. The children liked him very much, and the adults also felt sorry for him for losing his parents at such a young age and took good care of him. When he was 7 years old, he met the Granger family of 3 in the park and became good friends with the beautiful and lovely Emma. It was Hermione Granger. With his strong charm, Ian gained a lot of favorability in front of Hermione's parents, which made Hermione's parents successfully think of adopting him. However, Ian refused on the grounds that he didn't want to trouble Uncle Granger and Aunt Granger. Just kidding. If he really became sister and brother with Hermione, how could he feel at ease to fall in love with the little witch? However, Ian's refusal made the Grangers feel more distressed and pity him, and they directly signed the foster care documents with the orphanage and took him home to take care of him. Even in the past few years, they treated him closer than their biological daughter Hermione. Ian also became childhood sweethearts with Hermione as they wished, and the two grew up together. He had everything that Hermione had. When Hermione went to learn dancing, playing the piano, and taking tutoring classes, the Grangers would also enroll Ian in one of them, and they raised him as their own son. Only Hermione was fooled by Ian and firmly believed that Ian was her future husband. Ian, you are distracted again. Seeing Ian distracted, Hermione pouted, put her hands on her hips, and pretended to be angry. Don't you want to go to Charterhouse with me? Why? Ian chuckled, stretched out his hand to pinch Hermione's chubby face, and said softly, I'm very happy to go to school with you. Hermione smiled happily when she heard it, and the dimples on her cheeks were looming, so cute that people's hearts would melt. She took Ian's hand, looked up at him, and said with a smile, Then we have a deal. We will go to Charterhouse together, go to college together, and together what? Ian looked at her with amusement. Hermione's cheeks were slightly red, and she muttered softly, Dating together. Okay, dating together. Ian laughed and agreed. Ian, you're so nice. Hermione happily jumped into his arms and rubbed him like a kitten. Ian smiled and rubbed the little witch's head. If you ignore his plan to abduct the little witch, this scene is still very warm. At the same time, England, London, Hogwarts Castle. Albus. The child is still alive. Professor McGonagall rushed into the principal's office with an admission list in his hand, excited. I saw Ian Potter's name in the admission book. He is a new student who will be enrolled this year. Hearing this news, not only Dumbledore, but also the previous headmasters and the portraits in the office all looked out in surprise. Ian Potter, Harry Potter's younger brother, that child, is still alive. Minerva, are you sure you didn't see it wrong? Dumbledore stood up and asked in a serious tone. Absolutely not. I saw his name with my own eyes. Professor McGonagall handed the list to Dumbledore with certainty. That child is on the list of freshmen this year. Absolutely true. Oh my God, I thought that child was in that attack. Dallas Devante poked her head out of the portrait and said in a deep voice, After all, the mysterious man will not leave any trouble. Hearing what Principal Devante said, Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall fell silent. They all knew that it was a miracle that Ian Potter survived. Headmaster Phineas Black poked his head out of another portrait and smacked his lips. It's amazing. I thought the Potter family had completely died out except for Harry Potter. Hearing the successive headmasters talking at once, Dumbledore raised his hand to interrupt them. Well, we should be thankful that the child survived. He turned his head and looked at Professor McGonagall. Minerva, we need to prepare well for Ian Potter. You are right, Albus. Professor McGonagall nodded. We can't let that child get hurt again. The headmasters and the portraits also echoed. That's right. We must protect him well. We must never let him make the same mistake again. He and Harry are both children in the prophecy. They are the hope of defeating the mysterious man. Chapter 2 Admission Letter. Listening to the discussion of the portraits, Dumbledore fell into deep thought. His deep blue eyes sparkled through his half-moon glasses, as if he was thinking about something important. Albus. Professor McGonagall saw that he had not responded for a long time, and couldn't help shouting, What's wrong with you? Nothing. Dumbledore came back to his senses and smiled slightly. I just thought that tomorrow, we should personally give Ian his admission letter. I believe you'll be very happy to know that he is a wizard. Professor McGonagall also laughed. You are right, Albus. We should go in person. She glanced at the list on the table. Ian Potter lives in Manchester, Stone District, 444, Lily Street. Manchester. Dumbledore picked up the wand on the table and waved it gently. On the map of Britain on the wall of the principal's office, the location of Manchester immediately flashed with golden light. Then, let's go to Manchester tomorrow. The next day, early in the morning, the sun shone through the window into the room. Ian woke up from his sleep and yawned lazily. He turned his head and looked out the window. Today was a rare good day, with bright sunshine and clear sky. Ian got up from the bed, washed up, opened the door in his pajamas, and was about to go to the kitchen to get a glass of milk when he saw Hermione running up from downstairs in a hurry. Ian, get up quickly. Someone is coming home. Our acceptance letter has arrived. Mom and Dad asked me to call you down, Hermione said breathlessly, and she noticed that Ian had changed his clothes. She was stunned for a moment. You're up already? Yeah, I was just going to get a glass of milk. Ian chuckled and reached out to help her calm down. Don't worry, let's go down together. As he said that, he took Hermione's hand and walked downstairs. As soon as he reached the stairs, Ian heard a gentle and old voice coming from downstairs. "Mr. Granger, Mrs. Granger, thank you very much for your hospitality. We are here today not only to deliver the admission letters to the two young wizards, but also to meet Mr. Ian Potter." Hearing this voice, Ian paused slightly and raised his eyebrows. If he guessed correctly, this voice should belong to the headmaster of Hogwarts, Albus Dumbledore. The Olby actually came in person? Would he play the same trick on him as he did to Voldemort before? Ian was a little surprised, but he didn't show it on his face. He took Hermione down the stairs and saw two old people sitting on the sofa in the living room and talking with the Granger couple. One of them was wearing a dark purple robe, and the blue eyes behind the half-moon glasses revealed a wise light. It was Albus Dumbledore. The other was wearing an emerald green robe with a serious and dignified expression. Ian knew that this should be the deputy headmaster of Hogwarts, Professor Minerva McGonagall. Seeing these two legendary wizards sitting on the sofa in his home, even Ian couldn't help but feel nervous. Professors Dumbledore and McGonagall also noticed the two little wizards coming down the stairs. Both of them looked at Ian and looked him up and down. With red hair and green eyes, he looked very much like his mother Lily, but between his eyebrows and eyes, he was somewhat similar to his father James Potter. Looking at Ian, Dumbledore's eyes flashed with a trace of complex emotions. Mr. and Mrs. Granger also saw Ian and Hermione. Mr. Granger hurriedly greeted, "Ian, Hermione, you are down. Come here quickly. These two are Professor Dumbledore, the headmaster of Hogwarts School, and Professor McGonagall, the vice headmaster, who are here to give you the admission letter." Ian took Hermione to the living room, looked at the two wizards on the sofa, leaned over slightly, and saluted, "Professor Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, good day." Hermione followed suit and saluted. "I'm sorry, Professor Dumbledore. Hermione and I have never submitted an application to your school. I wonder if you made a mistake." Ian asked in a puzzled manner. "No, we didn't make a mistake." Dumbledore smiled and shook his head. "The application for Hogwarts does not need to be submitted by the little wizard himself. As long as the little wizard is over 11 years old and has a talent for magic, he will be automatically included in the Hogwarts admission list." He paused and looked at Ian with a deep look. "Wizard!" Ian and Hermione exclaimed at the same time, with just the right amount of surprise on their faces. Dumbledore picked up the wand, pointed it at the coffee table in front of them, and waved it gently. Two parchment documents immediately appeared on the coffee table, which were the admission letters from Hogwarts. "Magic!" Hermione exclaimed, looking at the wand in Dumbledore's hand with shining eyes, her face full of curiosity. Ian also pretended to be curious and yearning, but in fact, he was calm. "Don't you want to open it and take a look?" Seeing the two of them standing there in a daze, Dumbledore reminded with a smile. "Oh, of course." Ian came back to his senses and quickly picked up the admission letter on a coffee table and opened it to read. Hermione followed closely and picked up another admission letter and read it carefully. The familiar logo composed of a lion, snake, eagle, and badger made Ian feel more real. I wonder if his savior brother has also received this admission letter? Thinking of the green-eyed little wizard in the movie, Ian's eyes flashed with a complicated look. Speaking of which, Harry Potter is his only relative in the world. Although he has never met Harry Potter, he knows Harry Potter's fate very well. He lost his parents when he was young and lived with others until he received the admission letter from Hogwarts at the age of 11 and entered the magical world. However, even after entering the magic world, Harry's fate was not much better. He was involved with Voldemort in his first year, and he had to deal with Voldemort's Horcruxes throughout his student life. In the end, he was almost killed by Voldemort. Thinking about it this way, his savior brother really had a bad fate. Ian couldn't help but sigh in his heart, but his face was calm and yearning. At this time, Hermione had also finished reading the admission letter. She was full of surprise and looked up at Ian. "Ian, can we really go to Hogwarts to study magic?" "I think so." Ian smiled and rubbed her hair. "Look, the admission letter is already in our hands." Hermione hugged Ian's arm excitedly. "Great! Ian, we can also study magic." Looking at Hermione's excitement, Ian couldn't help but be infected, and the tension in his heart also dissipated a lot. Ian turned to look at Dumbledore with a slightly tentative and puzzled expression. Professor Dumbledore, I just heard you say that you hope to meet me? And why do you call me Mr. Potter? Hearing Ian's question, Dumbledore's eyes flashed with admiration. The little wizard in front of him was smarter and calmer than he thought. Chapter 3, Ian sheds 3 tears, and the old bee cries, Mr. Potter, you look a lot like your parents. Dumbledore said with a smile. His tone was full of emotion. Hearing Dumbledore's words, Ian was slightly stunned and lowered his eyes. Sorry, sir. I have never seen my parents. I'm an orphan. If it weren't for Uncle Granger and Aunt Granger, I would still be living in an orphanage. He didn't believe that facing such a miserable little poor man, Dumbledore could still harden his heart to test him. In fact, Dumbledore really can. Ding! Dumbledore is detected to be performing legilimency on the host. The system has automatically written the life experience in the host's brain. Hearing the mechanical sound in his mind, Ian's mouth twitched slightly. The old bee is really suspicious. He used legilimency on him, but fortunately, with the system, he is not afraid that Dumbledore will see any clues. Isn't it just the St. Potter? Harry can do it, and he can do it too. He can act. Ian complained a few words in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face. He just looked at Dumbledore blankly. Dumbledore looked at Ian, and a trace of apology flashed in his eyes. He didn't want to use legilimency on a little wizard, but Ian Potter's identity was too special, so he had to treat him with caution. However, after using legilimency, Dumbledore's eyes softened when he looked at Ian. What he saw was a little boy who grew up in an orphanage, but always remained kind and optimistic. Even if life was not fair to him, he never resented the world, but was full of expectations and hope for the future. Dumbledore retracted his gaze and looked at Ian with a smile. Child, maybe you don't know yet, your parents are both very good wizards. Really? Ian deliberately smiled sarcastically. Will excellent wizards abandon their children? When the director of the orphanage picked me up, I only had a name tag engraved with my name on me. My parents abandoned me, Ian said, taking out a thin red rope from his neck, on which hung a small silver plate with the word Ian engraved on it. This is the only thing I have about my life experience. Dumbledore looked at the silver plate in Ian's hand, was silent for a few seconds, and then slowly said, Your parents have never abandoned you. On the contrary, they love you very much, Ian. Ian, your parents had to leave you for some special reasons. Dumbledore sighed. With a heavy tone in his tone, they sacrificed their lives to protect you and your brother. Hearing Dumbledore's words, Ian showed a look of shock and disbelief on his face, but he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He knew that Dumbledore had not lied to him. His parents had indeed died to protect him and Harry, especially Mother Lily. The first thing Ian saw when he saw this world was Mother Lily standing in front of him and Harry. Sacrifice. Ian murmured the word again, his eyes slightly red. Can you tell me how they sacrificed? His acting skills burst out, and tears came as soon as he spoke. Dumbledore was silent for a moment, then slowly spoke and told Ian what happened that year in a simple way. Of course, he did not mention the prophecy, but only said that James and Lily fought a desperate battle with Voldemort to protect their children, and unfortunately sacrificed themselves in the end. After listening to Dumbledore's story, Ian was silent for a long time. Although he had already known the truth of the matter, Ian couldn't help but sigh after hearing Dumbledore's story in person. Mother's love is really great. Seeing Ian's tears in his eyes, even the strict Professor McGonagall was awakened to her motherly heart. She said softly, Ian, your parents are heroes. They're both very good wizards. Your father, James Potter, is brave and smart. Your mother, Lily Evans, is a beautiful and kind witch. But if they're still here, I would rather they are not heroes, but just my parents. Ian said with sobs. His words moved everyone present, and the Granger family of 3 felt even more distressed. Hermione walked directly to Ian's side and held his hand, as if giving him strength. Ian, you still have me, your parents. We will always be with you. We are your family. Hermione looked at Ian, her eyes full of determination. Feeling the warmth of Hermione's palm, Ian's heart could not help but surge with warmth. Looking at Ian and Hermione in front of him, Dumbledore's eyes flashed with a gleam of brilliance. Love is the most powerful magic. Professor Dumbledore, you just mentioned my brother, my brother. Ian took a deep breath and then mustered up the courage to ask, is he still alive? Yes, Ian, he is still alive. Dumbledore said with a smile. His name is Harry, and he is now living in the Muggle world. Professor Dumbledore, can I meet him? Ian looked at Dumbledore with some anticipation. Of course, Ian, you two brothers can meet. Dumbledore said with a smile. But not now. We have more important things to do now. You and Miss Granger are going to Diagon Alley to buy school supplies. Hearing Dumbledore's words, Ian couldn't help but feel a little disappointed, but he also knew that this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. He actually really wanted to meet Harry, the little boy with black hair and green eyes in his childhood memory. Ian sighed in his heart, but he didn't show it on his face, just nodded obediently. Okay, I got it, Professor Dumbledore. Very good, Ian. Dumbledore said with a smile. Then let's go to Diagon Alley now. As he said that, he stood up and took out a golden pocket watch from his pocket. This is the key to the door. It will take us to London. Dumbledore said, handing the pocket watch to Ian. Ian took the pocket watch and felt his palms sink. This pocket watch looked ordinary, but it was very heavy in his hand. What should I do, Professor? Ian asked hesitantly, looking at the pocket watch in his hand. It's simple, kid. Dumbledore gestured to the Grangers to grab the pocket watch as he chanted a spell. Mentos. As soon as he finished speaking, Ian felt dizzy, as if he was trapped in a void. He and the Grangers leaned against each other tightly, and a few seconds later, their feet were on solid ground again. Ian opened his eyes in a daze, and what came into view was a shabby bar. Ian's eyes flashed, and he subconsciously clenched the pocket watch in his hand. The Leaky Cauldron. Chapter 4 Diagon Alley in Gringotts Bank. Come on, kids, follow me. Dumbledore said, and walked towards the bar first. Ian and Hermione quickly followed Dumbledore's footsteps, and the Grangers followed closely. As soon as they entered the bar, they attracted the attention of everyone in the bar. Professor Dumbledore, someone exclaimed, with a bit of surprise and awe in his tone. Oh my God, it's Professor Dumbledore and Professor McGonagall. For a moment, the whole bar became noisy, and everyone talked about the arrival of Dumbledore and others. Dumbledore was obviously not surprised by this situation. He just smiled and nodded to everyone, and then took Ian and others through the bar to the patio behind the bar. Ian looked at the surrounding walls. He knew that this wall was the entrance to Diagon Alley. Kids, this is the gate to Diagon Alley. Dumbledore winked at the two little wizards mischievously. Remember to watch my movements. Count 3 blocks up from the trash can, and then count 2 blocks horizontally. As Dumbledore spoke, he gently waved the wand in his hand, and the original wall suddenly rippled with water-like patterns. Ian looked at the trash can, and his heart that wanted to make trouble was a little eager to move. If he moved this trash can, would the wizards who came later not be able to go to Diagon Alley? Before he finished thinking, Ian felt that the corner of his clothes was grabbed by Hermione. Hermione saw Ian's unruly thoughts at a glance and shook her head helplessly. Ian came back to his senses, looked at Hermione's clear eyes, and immediately touched his nose a little embarrassedly and silently put away his heart that wanted to make trouble. Let's go in, Dumbledore said with a smile, and then walked into Diagon Alley first. Ian and Hermione hurriedly followed by the Grangers. As soon as they entered Diagon Alley, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. There were a wide variety of shops on both sides of the street, and all kinds of strange and bizarre goods were displayed in the windows of each store. There were automatically stirring crucibles, screaming newspapers, and books that bite people. Oh my God, this place is so amazing. Mrs. Granger couldn't help but exclaimed, "This is Diagon Alley, a shopping paradise for London wizards." Dumbledore explained with a smile. Let's go to Gringotts to exchange some wizard currency first, and then go to Flourish and Blots to buy textbooks. Mr. Granger nodded. Professor Dumbledore, pounds should be able to be used to exchange wizard currency, right? Of course, Mr. Granger, Dumbledore said with a smile. In addition, gold can also be used to exchange gold galleons. After that, he took the lead in the direction of Gringotts. Ian looked around, watching the scenes that appeared in the movies. His heart was filled with excitement and curiosity. In his previous life, he had only seen Diagon Alley in movies and had been to the replica built by Universal. But what he saw now was real. Diagon Alley. Ian took a deep breath of air and felt that even the air was carrying some magical fluctuations. The magical world he had been thinking about. Ian, Hermione's voice suddenly rang in his ears, interrupting Ian's thoughts. Ian came back to his senses and looked at Hermione in a daze. "What's wrong? What are you thinking about?" So absorbed, Hermione asked curiously, "We've arrived at Gringotts. Let's go in." Ian heard this and realized that they had arrived at the first gate of Gringotts. He quickly gathered his thoughts and followed Hermione into Gringotts. Gringotts Wizarding Bank, a tall white building located in Diagon Alley, London, is the only bank in the wizarding world run by goblins. The first door is a shiny bronze door, with goblin guards in scarlet and gold uniforms standing at the door, bowing to customers when they come. The second door is silver, with the following words engraved on the door: "Come in, stranger, but be careful. What will happen if you are greedy? And you will be punished most severely if you just ask for it without working for it. So if you want to take away a fortune that never belonged to you from our underground vault, thief, you have been warned. Be careful not to bring treasure, but bad retribution." Ian looked at the words engraved on the door with a strange expression, silently complaining. Do goblins really think this kind of threat works? As we all know, a famous noseless monster successfully broke into Gringotts Bank. "Okay, let's go in," Dumbledore said, and walked into the second door first. Ian and Hermione followed quickly, and the Grangers followed closely. As soon as they walked into the second door, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. In a huge hall, hundreds of goblins were busy working. Some were weighing coins with weights, some were looking at gems with magnifying glasses, and some were handling business for customers. The whole hall was filled with the busy figures of goblins and the crisp sound of various coins colliding. "Oh my God, it's so busy here." Mr. Granger couldn't help but sigh. Gringotts is one of the largest banks in the wizarding world, and it receives thousands of customers every day. Dumbledore explained with a smile, "Let's go. Let's exchange currency and then buy textbooks and other school supplies." As he said, he took Ian and others to the front counter. "Griphook, the Granger family needs to exchange some gold galleons," Dumbledore said to the goblin behind the counter with a smile. The goblin named Griphook raised his head, revealing his pointed ears and green eyes. He looked at the Grangers and their spouses, and then said, "Young wizards from the Muggle world can only exchange a maximum of 100 gold galleons per person per year. This is the rule. 1 gold galleon is equal to 17 silver sickles, and 1 silver sickle is equal to 493 nuts. If you want to exchange it in pounds, is 5 pounds." Mr. Granger nodded. "Okay, then we will exchange 200 gold galleons." As he said that, he took out a stack of pounds from his pocket and handed it to Griphook. "No, Mr. Granger. Ian has his own vault." Dumbledore stopped Mr. Granger with a smile and looked at Griphook behind the counter. "Mr. Ian Potter needs to withdraw some money." Hearing this, Griphook behind the counter looked up at the few people. When he saw Ian, he was stunned for a moment, then showed a somewhat weird smile. "Potter. Oh, the youngest son of the Potter family. Then, Ian Potter should have brought the key." "Of course," Dumbledore said, taking out a small golden key from his pocket and handed it to Griphook. "This is Ian Potter's vault key." Griphook took the key, looked at it carefully, and then nodded. "Very good. This key is indeed the key to the Potter family vault." Ian's heart moved when he heard it. This should be the pile of gold galleons that James and Lily left for Harry in the movie, right? Well, now he has half. This life is getting better. Griphook first exchanged 100 gold galleons for Mr. Granger, and then walked out from behind the counter. "Come with me, Mr. Potter, and you." Under the leadership of Griphook, Ian and others passed through the busy hall and came to the deepest underground vault. Chapter 5: The Potter Family Vault. The vault is located hundreds of kilometers underground in London. Through the door of the hall, you can enter a narrow stone corridor, and there is a small railway below. Griphook took them on a cart in the maze-like winding passages and saw hundreds of passage branches and dense magic doors. It's really complicated here. Ian couldn't help but sighed. This is to ensure the safety of the customer's vault. Griphook explained without looking back. Gringotts' underground vault is one of the safest places in the world. Except for goblins, no one knows all the passages and mechanisms. As he spoke, the cart had stopped. Griphook took them to a seemingly inconspicuous magic door. Here we are. This is the Potter family's vault. As he said, he inserted the key into the keyhole on the door and turned it gently. With a light click, the magic door slowly opened, revealing the scene inside the vault. The huge vault was filled with golden galleons, various gems, and rare magic items, and the dazzling light dazzled people. "Oh my God, so much money!" Hermione couldn't help but exclaimed. "This is just the tip of the iceberg of the Potter family," Griphook said lightly. "The Potter family is one of Gringotts' largest customers. The wealth they store in Gringotts is enough to rival the treasury of a small country." Even though Ian was somewhat mentally prepared, he couldn't help but speed up his heartbeat when he saw the mountains of wealth in front of him. Dumbledore looked at Ian's appearance, smiled, and patted his shoulder. "This is what your parents left for you and Harry." "Professor, will my brother come here to withdraw money? Does he have a key? If he doesn't, can I withdraw more now and give him some after seeing my brother?" Ian asked like a machine gun. Dumbledore's smile deepened when he heard this. "When your brother comes to withdraw money, he will naturally have the key. As for you giving him a portion, I think your brother will be very happy." Then, "Professor, how much money can I withdraw?" Ian looked at Dumbledore and asked tentatively. "It depends on you, Ian," Dumbledore said with a smile. "But I don't think you need too much money now. After all, you're going to Hogwarts, where you hardly need to spend money." Ian nodded and looked at Griphook. "Mr. Griphook, I want to withdraw 500 gold galleons." Griphook didn't say much, just stretched out his hand and waved it, and suddenly 500 gold galleons flew up from the pile of gold coins and fell into the small bag he prepared. "Here you go, Mr. Ian Potter." Griphook handed Ian a small bag containing 500 gold galleons. "This is your money." Ian took the bag and felt his palms sink. A bright smile suddenly appeared on his face. "Thank you." Hermione looked at the bag in Ian's hand, then looked at the bag in her own hand, her eyes shining. "This bag can hold so much money. Is it enchanted?" "That's right, Miss Granger." Professor McGonagall nodded. "This bag has been enchanted with a traceless extension spell and can hold things much larger than its volume." "It's amazing." Hermione couldn't help but sigh, and then looked at Ian. "Ian, let's go buy books now." She wants to read books, to learn magic. "Of course, we're going to flourish and blots now," Ian said, looking at Dumbledore. "Professor, let's..." "Professor McGonagall will take you there. Kids, I still have some things to deal with." Dumbledore winked at the two little wizards. "Ian and Hermione, we'll see you when school starts." "Professor Dumbledore, goodbye." Ian raised his head and smiled innocently, but he was thinking secretly in his heart. What old Dumbledore was talking about should be the Philosopher's Stone, right? The plot has already begun. "Ian, Hermione, let's go." Professor McGonagall's voice interrupted Ian's thoughts. He looked up, looked at the older cat lady, and nodded. "Okay, Professor McGonagall." The Grangers followed Professor McGonagall out of the vault. Outside Gringotts, the sun shone through the clouds, illuminating the streets with a golden hue. Ian looked up at the sky and took a deep breath. "Voldemort, Voldemort, for my wonderful student life, I'll have to ask you to die." "Ian, what are you thinking about?" Hermione's voice sounded in his ears, interrupting his thoughts. "Nothing, just thinking, what book should we buy next?" Ian smiled at Hermione and said, "We have to buy standard spells, elementary, and history of magic." Hermione counted on her fingers as she walked, and Magic Theory, Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration, 1,000 Magical Herbs, and Fungi. Listening to Hermione chattering a long list of book titles, Ian showed a helpless smile on his face. "Well, little Hermione who loves to study. Sometimes I really doubt that Hermione should go to Ravenclaw." The group soon arrived at Flourish and Blots. The bookstore was crowded with people, and many young wizards were choosing their favorite books accompanied by their parents. There's so many people. Hermione looked at the bustling crowd in the bookstore and silently pulled Ian's clothes. The Granger couple looked at each other, and as if triggering some set program, they reached out to the two young wizards. Ian and Hermione also understood immediately and handed over their purses. Mom, Dad, Uncle, and Aunt will wait for you to come back here. Professor McGonagall watched the whole tacit performance with a confused look on his face and couldn't help asking, "Do you do this often?" "Yes." The four people answered together. Ian held Hermione's hand and fiddled with it from time to time. In the Muggle world, there are more students buying books at the beginning of the school term than in the Wizarding world, so we will act separately every time. Ian and I will stay where we are, and Mom and Dad will go to buy books. Hermione said, looking at Professor McGonagall, "Professor McGonagall, we can take this opportunity to buy wands and let Mom and Dad buy books here. What do you think?" "Of course, this is a good idea, Hermione." Professor McGonagall nodded slightly. "Then let's go to Ollivander's wand shop to buy wands first." As she said, she looked at the Grangers. "Mr. Granger, Mrs. Granger, we can meet at the door of the bookstore later. How about it?" "Of course, Professor." Mr. Granger nodded. "We will wait for you here." Professor McGonagall, "How much does it cost to buy a wand?" Mrs. Granger took the purse and prepared to give Ian and Hermione some gold galleons. "A wand only costs a dozen galleons, Mrs. Granger." Professor McGonagall said with a smile. Mrs. Granger counted out 30 galleons and handed them to Ian. "Ian, you and Hermione take this money and use it to buy wands later." "Okay, Aunt Granger." Ian took the galleons and followed Professor McGonagall out of Flourish and Blots with Hermione. They walked through the busy streets and soon arrived at the door of Ollivander's wand shop. Chapter 6. Ian Potter's wand, a small and shabby shop. The golden sign on the door has peeled off, and a withered balsam swayed in the wind in the flower pot by the window. The sign also reads, "Ollivander, making fine wands since 382 BC. Yes, Ollivander, a master of wand making." "Here, can you really sell wands here?" Hermione asked doubtfully, looking at the shop in front of her. Professor McGonagall did not answer Hermione's words, but pushed open the door of the shop. "Let's go in." Ian and Hermione followed Professor McGonagall and walked into the shop. The shop was very dark, and the air was filled with a rotten smell of wood. The walls around were filled with densely packed wand boxes, which made people dazzled. "Good afternoon, McGonagall." An old voice sounded in my ears. Ian turned his head and saw an old man with a hunched body and silver eyes who appeared behind the counter at some point. The old man was thin, with sharp eyes and long silver hair scattered on his shoulders, giving people a feeling of being unkempt. "Good afternoon, Ollivander." Professor McGonagall nodded at the old man. "These two children need to buy wands." "Oh, new little wizards?" Ollivander raised his head, his old eyes flashing with sharp light. "Welcome to Ollivander's wand shop. You will find the most suitable wand for yourself here." Ollivander looked closely at Ian and felt that this face was very familiar. He asked with a little doubt, "Child, what is your name? You should not be a Muggle wizard, right? I remember every customer who comes to my store. You remind me of an old customer many years ago. I wonder who your parents are." "Sir, my name is Ian Potter. James Potter and Lily Potter are my parents." Ian answered truthfully with a face that is 70% similar to Lily. "Oh, Potter boy, wait. Ian Potter." Ollivander's eyes widened. "You're still alive? Oh my God. No wonder I feel familiar with you. You look like your mother, with the same red hair and green eyes. I still remember the first one your parents bought from me." Ollivander spoke incoherently, seeming to be shocked by Ian's appearance. Professor McGonagall saw this and couldn't help but remind him, "Ollivander, you scare the child." "Ah, sorry, child." Ollivander came back to his senses and apologized repeatedly. "I was just too surprised. I didn't expect to see you here." He turned his head and looked at Hermione. "What about you?" "Little girl, what's your name?" "My name is Hermione Granger." Hermione replied. "Hermione Granger. Well, a Muggle wizard." Ollivander murmured as he looked at Hermione. "It doesn't matter. You will find your wand here." He turned to Ian again. "Come on, kid. Let's see what kind of wand is suitable for you." Ollivander picked up a long measuring tape and snaked it on the floor like a snake. Ian stepped back and let Hermione choose the wand first. ladies first. Ian is so gentle. Ian is so gentlemanly. Ian is so nice. Hermione looked at Ian softly, then turned to look at Ollivander. What should I do? Miss Granger, stand there and don't move, Ollivander said softly. The measuring tape rose up and automatically wrapped around Hermione's shoulders, chest, waist, and finally fell to her feet. As Ollivander measured, he muttered, "The choice of wand is of great significance. If it is well matched, it will exert a stronger power." After measuring Hermione, he put away the measuring tape, walked to the shelf, and began to choose a wand. Try this one, you would, with unicorn hair as the wand core, 11 inches long. Ollivander picked up a wand from the shelf and handed it to Hermione. Hermione took the wand and waved it gently, and dazzling red sparks suddenly burst out from the tip of the wand. It doesn't seem to be suitable. Ollivander shook his head and handed Hermione another wand. Then try this one, Vinewood Dragonheart Tendon, 10 3/4 inches. This time, as soon as Hermione held the wand, it seemed to have life, jumping at her fingertips and emitting a soft light. It seems that our Miss Granger has found the wand that suits you best, Ollivander said with a smile. Hermione looked at the wand in her hand and smiled happily. Thank you. The price of this wand is 11 galleons, Ollivander said. Ian counted the 11 galleons and handed them to Ollivander. Here you go, Mr. Ollivander. Ollivander took the gold coins and turned to Ian and said, Then, Mr. Potter, it's your turn. The measuring tape rose again and automatically wrapped around Ian. I still remember the scene when your parents came to buy a wand for the first time. Ollivander measured Ian and recalled, Your father, James Potter, tried almost all the wands here before finding the one that suited him best. And your mother, Lily Potter, she liked her wand at first sight. I wonder if you'll be like your father or your mother? Ollivander looked at Ian curiously. Soon, the tape measure finished measuring Ian, and Ollivander walked to the shelf and began to choose a wand for Ian. Try this one, Hawthornwood, unicorn hair, 10 inches long, moderate elasticity, a very contradictory wand. Ollivander handed Ian a wand. Ian took the wand and waved it gently, and a powerful shock wave suddenly hit the counter on the side, smashing it to pieces. Looking at the mess he made, Ian smiled awkwardly and put the wand back. It's not his fault. It seems that this one is not suitable for you. Ollivander looked behind him dully and handed Ian another one, oak, with phoenix feather as the wand core, 11 inches. Ian waved the wand again, and Ollivander's wand shop exploded again. Oh, it seems that you are a picky wizard like your father. Ollivander was not discouraged and continued to choose a wand for Ian. He tried almost all the wands in the store, but couldn't find the one that suited him. Just when Ollivander was about to give up, he suddenly thought of something and turned around to take out a wand from the deepest part of the shelf. This one is a wand made by my grandfather, and it has never found a suitable owner. Ollivander handed the wand to Ian. It is made of rosewood from the ancient East, with phoenix tail feathers as the wand core, and is 12 1/4 inches long, representing luck. My grandfather said that the person who can control it must have very powerful magic. The ancient East? Ian raised his eyebrows. Is this talking about the flower growers? Ian took the wand and felt his palms slightly warm, as if some power was surging in the wand. He waved it gently, and a dazzling golden light burst out from the tip of the wand, instantly illuminating the entire room. That's it, Ollivander shouted excitedly. Ian looked at the wand in his hand, and an inexplicable sense of intimacy surged in his heart, as if this wand was a part of his body. Kid, you will become a great wizard. Ollivander looked at Ian, his eyes flashing with expectation. Also, remember, it is the wand that chooses the wizard. Ian's mouth twitched slightly. Wouldn't this old man say this to every wizard who came to buy a wand? However, Ian still responded politely. Thank you for your blessing, Mr. Ollivander. Ian paused and looked at the mess in the store awkwardly. Mr. Ollivander, how much do I need to pay? 13 gold galleons, Mr. Potter. Ollivander looked around. As for the mess in the store, this is common, kid. You don't have to worry about it. It's okay, it's okay. It's just a dozen restoration spells. Ian breathed a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Ollivander would ask him to compensate for the loss of the store. Ian paid the money and left Ollivander's wand shop with Hermione. Ollivander looked at Ian's back and murmured to himself, "A lucky boy." Chapter 7 Golden Eagle Themis. After Ian and his two friends met the Grangers, they bought all the items needed for school. During this time, Professor McGonagall suddenly had something urgent to do, so he left first. Mr. Granger glanced at the list and rubbed the heads of the two little guys. "Well, we're going to buy pets now." Before Professor McGonagall left, he said it would be best to buy an owl so that it would be convenient for us to send letters. But Professor McGonagall also said that there are public owls in the school's owl shed, so we can buy other pets. Hermione muttered softly. She actually wanted a cat more. "Okay, baby, let's go to Ella Owl's shop first." Mrs. Granger looked at Hermione lovingly. "If there is no owl you like, let's go to the magical animal store." Okay. Hermione smiled sweetly. She knew that her mother loved her the most. Ella Owl Shop is a shop that specializes in selling owls. There are many kinds of owls in it, which are dazzling. Ian walked around the shop and suddenly heard a crisp cry. He looked in the direction of the sound and saw a small and exquisite snowy owl in the cage staring at him with a pair of big eyes. The little guy's snow-white feathers were mixed with black spots. Ian recognized this little guy in an instant. Hedwig, the owl given to Harry by Hagrid. In the movie and the original book, Hedwig helped Harry deliver letters countless times and finally died to protect Harry. Thinking of its final ending, Ian felt a little sorry. He walked up to Hedwig, stretched out his index finger, and gently stroked its feathers. Good girl. Hedwig seemed to like Ian very much and rubbed his fingers affectionately. "Ian, do you like this little guy?" Mrs. Granger looked at the clerk next to her. "Hello. How much is this owl?" "This is a snowy owl, smart, and very suitable for delivering letters." The clerk introduced enthusiastically. "Only 10 gold galleons." "Aunt Granger, I don't think it should be my owl." Ian looked at Hedwig and smiled slightly. "I think it should be waiting for another owner who is more suitable for it." "Oh, do you think so?" Mrs. Granger looked at Ian in surprise. "But you really like this little guy. I can see." Ian smiled. "I want a majestic and domineering one. It's so cute." "Okay. Our little Ian has his own ideas." Mrs. Granger pinched Ian's face. "Then let's take a look at other owls." The clerk seemed a little regretful, but he still enthusiastically introduced other owls to Ian in them. Ian finally stopped in front of a majestic golden eagle and stared at it. For some reason, Ian always felt that he could tell what the golden eagle wanted to say from its disdainful look. "Golden eagle, little red-haired brat, why are you looking at me? Are you going to buy me? Don't you like that snowy owl?" "Ian, you poisonous girl." "Golden eagle, she's a good girl. I'm a bad girl? Well, let's take this one." Ian looked away awkwardly and turned to look at the clerk. "Excuse me, how much is this golden eagle?" The clerk looked at the golden eagle Ian had chosen, and a look of embarrassment appeared on his face. "Kid, are you sure you want to choose it? The golden eagle girl is a little unruly and difficult to tame." "This is it." Ian looked at the golden eagle and smiled slightly. "I believe I can tame it." The golden eagle glanced at Ian with disdain and continued to comb its feathers. Seeing this, the clerk stopped persuading him. "Okay, since you insist. This golden eagle has a faint Thunderbird bloodline and is the most expensive in the store. It costs 50 gold galleons." Ian took out 60 gold galleons from his purse and handed them to the clerk. "Please help me prepare some food and supplies suitable for it." The clerk took the gold galleons and smiled brightly. "Okay, kid, wait a moment." Not long after, the clerk came over with a bag full of golden eagle supplies. "This is its food and supplies. There are labels on them. You will know how to use them when you go back and take a look." The clerk handed the golden eagle's cage to Ian and carefully reminded him, "But you have to be careful. It may be a little fierce." Ian took the golden eagle, looked at its sharp eyes, and smiled slightly. "From now on, you will be called Themis. How about it?" The golden eagle, that is, Themis, glanced at Ian and did not respond, but Ian could feel that it did not have much hostility towards him. "It seems that our Themis is a noble and cold lady." Ian gently stroked the feathers of the golden eagle. Hermione saw that Ian had already chosen an owl and her eyes rolled. She pulled Mrs. Granger's hand and began to act coquettishly. Mom, Ian and I can let Themis deliver the letter together. I don't want an owl. Let's go to the magical animal store to look at other pets now, okay? Mrs. Granger didn't care what pet her daughter bought. Seeing Hermione acting coquettishly, her heart melted. She didn't even remember to buy an owl. She nodded repeatedly. Okay, let's go to the magical animal store to have a look. Really not buying an owl? Will Themis be tired if it relies on a loan? Mr. Granger said worriedly. Uncle Granger, don't worry. Themis is not an ordinary owl. It is a golden eagle with very strong flying and hunting abilities, Ian explained with a smile. Besides, I think Themis won't mind delivering a few more letters. Hearing this, Themis glanced at Ian with disdain, as if to say, Red-haired devil, you will always make trouble for me. Seeing this, Ian fed Themis a piece of raw meat given by the clerk, in exchange for a roll of its eyes. Okay, since you said so, Ian, let's go to the magical animal store to see other pets. Mr. Granger saw this and no longer insisted. So, the group left the owl shop and went to the magical animal store. Hermione took Ian's hand and looked at everything in the store curiously. Ian, what pet do you think I should buy? Hermione looked at the dazzling array of pets in the store and was a little undecided. Well, maybe a cat. Ian looked around for the cat that should have belonged to Hermione. Where's Crookshanks? Has it not been sent to the store yet? Or is it because of some kind of plot twist that it must appear in the third year? Hermione wandered around the store for a long time and finally returned to Ian in disappointment. Ian, do you think I am too picky? Why don't I like any of the pets? Maybe it's not the right time, Hermione. Ian comforted. It doesn't matter. We have to come to Diagon Alley every year anyway. We can come every time to see it. Wait until the third year. Crookshanks should appear, right? Then he can buy Crookshanks and give it to Hermione as a gift. Okay. Hermione nodded a little disappointed, but soon she cheered up. You're right, Ian. Let's come and see it next time. Hermione, I want to give my brother a pet. Let's go pick it out together. Ian changed the subject, not wanting the little girl to continue to be disappointed. Okay, then let's go and see it together. Hermione was indeed diverted, holding Ian's hand and began to wander around the store. Ian looked around and stopped at the pet snake. Harry is a lion, but he has a parcel tongue. If he had a pet snake. Chapter 8, A Pet Snake for Harry. Hermione, what do you think of me giving my brother a snake? Ian pointed at a small green snake and asked. Hermione looked at the snake with a hesitant look on her face. Ian, will the snake be too dangerous? Don't worry, Hermione. I think Harry will like it. Ian looked at the snake and had made up his mind. Parcel tongue plus a snake pet. If it is placed in the Chamber of Secrets next year, wouldn't it be easier for Harry to be considered the heir of Slytherin? Interesting. Let's do it. So, Ian bought the green snake and asked the clerk to help him put it in a beautiful glass box. So, Hermione, didn't you choose the pet you wanted? Mrs. Granger asked curiously when she saw the two of them coming back with a glass box in their hands. Mom, I didn't choose the pet I wanted. Hermione shook her head, a little disappointed, but Ian chose a snake for his brother as a pet. Oh, really? Let me see. Mr. Granger took the glass box and looked at the green snake inside. Well, this is indeed a very beautiful snake. Ian's eyes lit up. Uncle Granger, you think so too? I think Harry will like it. As for what if Harry doesn't like it? Huh. How could St. Pod have the heart to reject his twin brother who has lived in an orphanage since childhood and is helpless? Well, I think he will. Mr. Granger smiled and nodded. The family left the magical animal store and continued to wander around Diagon Alley until the sun set. The four people ended their shopping trip and set off on the way home. We will be home in a while. What do you two want to eat when you go home? Mrs. Granger asked gently. Mom, I want to eat the pasta you made. Hermione said without hesitation. Where is Ian? Mrs. Granger turned to look at Ian. I'm fine with it, Aunt Granger. Ian said with a smile. He was not picky about food. Then we'll go home and eat pasta. Mrs. Granger made the decision. Ian looked at the scenery outside the window, which was rapidly receding, and silently complained about the traffic in England. The area of London and Manchester combined is not as big as Beijing, but it takes 2 hours to get there. It's so slow. When his magic becomes stronger in the future, he will definitely transform the transportation of muggles. He will rule the wizarding world, then abolish the statute of secrecy. Let wizards promote the advancement of science and technology. Ian thought happily, and even the scenery outside the window became pleasing to the eye. Ian? Ian. Hermione's voice brought Ian back to his thoughts. We're home. What are you thinking about? Nothing, Hermione. Ian shook his head and got out of the car with Hermione. Let's go back. Okay. Hermione nodded, took Ian's hand, and walked into the house together. At the dinner table, Mrs. Granger made delicious pasta, and Ian ate a big bowl. After dinner, Ian carried the golden eagle cage and the glass box containing the little snake back to the room. System, are you still alive? Make a sound. Ian called the system in his mind. Beep. The mechanical sound rang in his mind, and Ian was relieved. It's good that it's still there. His system is different from others, except when he meets the beautiful heroine. It is basically dead at other times. If he doesn't call it occasionally, he is really afraid that it will be gone. System, install a magic positioning for this little green snake. Ian ordered and put the glass box on the desk at the same time. Who told his cheap brother, who is the savior, to love to die? And with this little butterfly, he doesn't know what the plot will be like. So he has to install a GPS on this little green snake, just in case Harry dies. He can save Harry's life in time. Beep. The positioning has been loaded. Yeah, very good. Ian nodded with satisfaction, opened the glass box, and put his hand in. The little green snake obediently wrapped around Ian's wrist, and its tongue flicked gently, as if greeting Ian. Ian gently stroked the scales of the little green snake, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Good boy, good boy. Themis stood on the perch, staring sharply at the little green snake in Ian's hand. The little green snake seemed to feel the threat from Themis, and its body trembled slightly. Ian looked at his golden eagle, then at the little green snake, and his brain finally reacted. They are the relationship between predator and prey. Oh, Merlin. It seems that he will have to keep a closer eye on Themis in the future. Ian patted his head gently and put the little green snake back into the glass box. Themis, it is not your reserved food. It is a gift from my brother. You can't scare it. Themis flapped her wings and restored her noble and cold posture, as if saying, I didn't scare it. It's just too timid. Okay, we didn't want to eat it. It's just too timid. Ian said in accordance with the wishes of his big bird. Themis hummed with satisfaction, turned her head away, and stopped looking at the little green snake. Ian couldn't help but chuckle when he saw this. This guy is really arrogant. Just then, there was a knock on the door, and Ian hurried over to open the door. Hermione stood at the door, holding a thick book in her hand. Ian leaned against the door frame and smiled like a succubus. Hermione, good evening, what's up? Hermione looked at Ian's smiling face. Her face slightly red, she lowered her head and handed the book in her hand to Ian. Ian, I saw you and your brother in the book. Why is it that every time I come to see Ian at night, he is always so? At this time, Hermione, who was young, didn't know there was a word called male beauty seducing people. Ian took the book from Hermione and took a look at the cover, History of Magic. His Hermione is really a college bully. She is still reading books late at night, and the book she is reading is the most boring history of magic. Ian opened the book and saw the place Hermione pointed to him at a glance. There happened to be a photo of him, Harry, and Mr. and Mrs. Potter on that page. Judging from the background, it should be when they were just born. The photo on the History of Magic moves, so Ian can clearly see James' silly smile and the gentle look of Lily's mother looking at James. Ian stared at this touching scene, silently took his History of Magic, cut out the photo, and carefully put it into his notebook. Ian, Hermione called carefully. Thank you, Hermione. Ian lowered his eyes. You know, I don't like reading this kind of history stuff the most. If it weren't for you, I might not know what my parents look like now. Hermione looked at the sadness that was about to overflow in Ian's eyes, and her heart couldn't help but feel sad. She tiptoed and hugged Ian gently. Ian, I'm fine, Hermione. Ian hugged Hermione back gently. It's getting late, go to bed early, good night. Good night, Ian. Hermione let go of Ian and turned back to her room. Ian watched Hermione's door close before turning back to his room. He sat at the desk, looking at the photo of James and Lily in a notebook, and couldn't help but sigh. He is really suitable for acting, but only in this way. Dumbledore will not always be on guard against him. Dumbledore will believe that he is just a simple child whose parents died early, not a villain who wants to rule the world. When he thought of this, Ian wanted to curse at Voldemort. If it weren't for the damn Tom, even if he, the savior, started in an orphanage, Dumbledore would not be so suspicious of him and even use legitimacy on him. That old man, if he didn't have the system to help him compile those life experiences, I don't know how Dumbledore would defend himself. Forget it. He doesn't believe that he can't handle an old man over 100 years old. Ian opened the notebook and wrote a line of words next to the photo of James and Lily. I miss you, Mom and Dad. Ian gently stroked the faces of James and Lily in the photo, and a trace of satisfaction flashed in his eyes. Very good. This way, his personality will be more solid. Ian closed the notebook, carefully put it in the drawer, and then climbed onto the bed. Themis stood on the perch and closed his eyes. One person and one eagle fell asleep. Chapter 9 School starts, encountering Gemini and Draco September 1st, the first day of school at Hogwarts. Mr. Granger and his wife sent Ian and Hermione to King's Cross Station in London. We're here. Mr. Granger's tone was a little heavy, and he silently took the luggage of the two children out of the car. Mrs. Granger's eyes were slightly red, and she kept kissing Hermione and Ian's foreheads. Mr. Granger looked at the pillar between platforms 9 and 10 and frowned worriedly. Is it really okay to enter from here? Professor McGonagall said so. So it must be okay. Mrs. Granger reached out and hugged the two children, wiping her tears with a handkerchief. Hermione, Ian, you must write more letters to me and John. Mom, I will. Hermione hugged Mrs. Granger back. Her eyes were also a little red. Ian also hugged Mrs. Granger. I can write letters too, Aunt Granger. Professor McGonagall said that only wizards can enter platform 9 3/4. Mr. Granger put his arm around his wife's shoulders. Hermione, Ian, we can only take you here. Uncle Granger, Aunt Granger, don't worry. I will take good care of Hermione. Mr. Granger patted Ian's shoulder, his eyes full of trust. Ian, we are relieved to have you here, but you have to take care of yourself. Of course, Uncle Granger. Ian nodded and glanced at Hermione, who was reluctant to leave. Hermione, we should go. Hermione hugged the Grangers again and then took Ian's hand. Mom and Dad, goodbye. Uncle Granger, Aunt Granger, goodbye. After that, Ian and Hermione pushed the luggage cart and rushed to the pillar without looking back. Their figures quickly disappeared in front of the Grangers. Mr. and Mrs. Granger stood there for a long time before they looked away. They will meet many friends. Mr. Granger hugged his wife and said softly. Mrs. Granger leaned in his arms and nodded gently. I know, but I'm still a little worried. Ian is a sensible child. He will take good care of Hermione. I know, John. I feel relieved with Ian here. On platform 9 3/4, a Crimson Steam locomotive stopped beside the platform, and the sign hanging on the train read Hogwarts Express, 11 o'clock. Ian and Hermione walked along the platform and soon found an empty carriage. They moved their luggage into the carriage and sat by the window, waiting for the train to start. Looking at Hermione, who was still sad, Ian held the little witch's hand. Hermione, we can still go home during the Christmas holiday. Don't be sad, okay? The warmth from the palm of his hand dispelled Hermione's reluctance. She turned to look at Ian and nodded gently. Yeah, she understood the reason, but it was the first time she left her parents, so she was inevitably a little sad. But fortunately, she still had Ian to accompany her. Hermione, let's go to the train to find my brother now. Ian suddenly remembered the business. Your brother is the savior, so it should be easy to find him. Hermione held Ian's hand and walked out of the carriage with him. The train was very lively, and there were little wizards wearing brand new wizard robes like them everywhere. Ian took Hermione and the little green snake and searched from carriage to carriage. Excuse me, have you seen Harry Potter? Oh, two first-year little wizards. Looking for Harry Potter? Are you fans of the Savior? Hearing this familiar tone of voice, Ian subconsciously looked up and saw two familiar faces. Fred? George? Ian was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect to meet the Weasley twins so soon. "I am Ian Potter. I came to find my brother." Before Ian finished speaking, Fred and George widened their eyes and interrupted him in surprise. "Wait, you said you were Ian Potter?" Ian nodded helplessly. "Yes, it's true. A few days ago, the Daily Prophet reported that the other savior is still alive. When my mother found out, she cried very sadly." "Keep saying great. The child is still alive." Fred and George talked back and forth, not giving Ian a chance to speak. "Sorry, can you stop for a moment?" Ian interrupted them with a frown on his face. "Maybe. You know which compartment my brother Harry Potter is in?" Fred and George looked at each other and spread their hands together. "I don't know. We are not familiar with him." "Ian, I almost forgot that at this time, the twins didn't know Harry yet." "Okay, if you see my brother, can you ask him to come to this compartment to find me?" Ian took out a small note from his pocket, wrote down the compartment number, and handed it to Fred. "No problem, great savior." Fred and George saluted Ian at the same time, with a teasing smile on their faces. Ian rolled his eyes in annoyance, pulled Hermione, and turned away. The two continued to look for Harry on the train and met a few Harry Potter fans and a platinum boy during the period. "Potter, you will find that in the wizarding world, pureblood families like ours are easy to be friends with." Draco glanced at Hermione, stretched out a hand, and wanted to shake hands with Ian. "I am Malfoy, Draco Malfoy." Hearing the same words as in the movie, Ian's mouth twitched slightly. He didn't even look at the hand that Draco stretched out and walked straight past him with Hermione. "Malfoy, if you want to be friends with me, don't disgust me with your pure-blood supremacy rhetoric." Draco was stunned in place. His outstretched hand still maintained the handshake posture. His face turned pale and blue, extremely ugly. From childhood to adulthood, this is the first time that he has been humiliated like this. Ian stopped again, turned his head to look at Draco, and raised his eyebrows slightly. "However, if you are willing to put aside your prejudice, I might consider it. After all, more friends mean more ways, right?" Draco's face instantly became wonderful. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end he only said one word, "What?" Ian smiled, said nothing more, and continued to walk forward with Hermione. He had already said this. If Malfoy still insisted on his theory of pure blood supremacy, then they could not be friends. He would not watch Hermione being bullied. However, if Malfoy was willing to change, he could give him a chance. After all, if he wanted to defeat Voldemort, he had to disintegrate the Death Eaters from within, and he had to start with pure blood heirs like Malfoy. Chapter 10. Harry Potter, Ian, and Hermione continued to look for Harry on the train until they arrived at a carriage at the end of the train. Ian was about to knock on the door to ask when he heard a voice coming from inside the door. "Ronald, are you willing to accompany me to find my brother? Hagrid said that he is also a freshman this year and is on this train." This is 100% Harry's voice. Ian's eyes lit up, and he reached out to push open the door of the carriage. Harry and Ronald heard the noise and turned their heads to look, and then saw Ian and Hermione standing at the door. "Brother, I'm Ian." Ian looked at Harry's face that was exactly the same as the movie. His heart was slightly warm, and he walked quickly into the carriage. "Ian, you are Ian. Brother, my brother." Harry stood up suddenly, walked quickly to Ian, and hugged him. "Ian, I finally see you." Ian, his brother, his real brother, his only living family. Harry hugged Ian tightly. His eyes instantly reddened, as if he wanted to make up for all the hugs of these 11 years. "When Hagrid told me, I couldn't even believe it." Harry choked and said, tears rushed out. "Aunt Petunia said that on the night when Mom and Dad died, you also..." "Ian, you're still alive. Great, you're really still alive." Ian also hugged Harry back, patted his back gently, and squeezed out a few tears. "Yes, Harry, I'm still alive. We finally met." His recognition of relatives was really effective. From today, he, Ian, is the intangible cultural heritage left to Harry by James and Lily. Hagrid said that you look a lot like your mother, with red hair and green eyes. Harry let go of Ian and looked carefully at the pair of green eyes that were the same as his, full of closeness and joy in his eyes. Ian smiled and pointed at Harry's messy black hair. Professor Dumbledore also said that you look a lot like your father, Harry. Harry touched his hair and smiled shyly. Professor Dumbledore told me that you have been living with your aunt and uncle. Are they good to you? Ian asked with concern. Harry was silent for a moment, then smiled and said, "Of course they are." Ian looked at Harry's thin figure and sighed slightly in his heart. "Harry, they're not good to you, right?" "Actually, they're not bad," Harry said quickly. He didn't want his brother to worry about him. What's more, he was telling the truth. Compared with Ian's life in an orphanage since he was a child, he was already good. Although Aunt Petunia and Uncle Vernon didn't like him, and Dudley always bullied him, at least he didn't sleep on the streets, didn't go hungry, and received an education. What about Ian? His brother didn't know how much suffering and pain he had to endure in the orphanage to grow up to this age. I can only say that if Ian knew that Harry's inner drama was so rich, he would definitely tell Harry loudly, "You worry too much. Brother, please." When he was in the orphanage, he was the most popular, and women of all ages liked him very much. After meeting Hermione, it goes without saying that he was directly eating the future Minister of Magic's free rice, and he was just short of marrying into the Granger family. Harry pulled Ian aside to ask a few words of comfort, and then he remembered Ronald and Hermione, who were ignored. "Ian, is this your friend?" Harry looked at Hermione, and a flash of surprise flashed in his eyes. He was busy looking at his brother just now, and didn't notice that the girl next to his brother was quite beautiful. "She is Hermione, brother. This is my good friend." Ian almost blurted out the word girlfriend, but thinking of their current age, he changed his words. Hermione glanced at Ian quietly and didn't expose his little thoughts. "Hello, my name is Hermione Granger." Hermione smiled and held out her hand to Harry. "I always heard Ian mention you, Harry." "Hello, Hermione." Harry held Hermione's hand and shook it gently. "Nice to meet you." He looked at Ronald again. "This is my new friend on the train, Ronald Weasley." "Hello, Ronald." Ian and Hermione extended their hands to Ronald. "Nice to meet you." "Hello, hello." Ronald held Ian's hand and said nervously, "Ian, nice to meet you." He actually became friends with the Potter brothers. He can brag about what happened today for the rest of his life. Ian looked at Ronald's nervous and excited look and raised his eyebrows slightly. "Hello, Ronald." In the original book and the movie, this guy is the official match of his little Hermione. But now, Ian glanced at Hermione beside him and smiled in his heart. Little Hermione has been fooled by him since she was a child. She wants to steal his wife? No way. Harry pulled Ian to sit down and took out a purse from his arms. "This is for you, Ian. And this, a birthday present, brother." Harry took out a small box and handed it to Ian. Ian took the purse and the box and felt his palms sink. "Harry," Ian looked at the two things in his hand in surprise. What he did for Harry was entirely out of the greater good, and Harry was really sincere to him. "This is the money that Mom and Dad left us, and I was afraid you didn't have the key, and this is my birthday gift for you." Harry explained with a smile. "Although it's 2 months late, I hope you like it." Ian opened the box, and inside was an exquisite watch. "Thank you, brother." Ian looked up at Harry and grinned. "This is the best birthday present I've ever received." Harry smiled and rubbed Ian's head. "I'm glad you like it. By the way, Harry, look, this is my birthday present for you." Ian put the glass box containing the little green snake on the small table by the window. "I bought it at the magical zoo in Diagon Alley. And this, I went to Gringotts to withdraw money last time, and my brother had the same idea." Ian took out the purse again and handed it to Harry. "This is for you. There are 100 gold galleons in it." Harry looked at the little green snake and the bag of gold galleons on the table, and his eyes became red again. Ian, his younger brother, thought of him like this, bought him birthday gifts, gave him money. As for what he gave Ian, isn't that the care of the brother to the younger brother? Isn't that as it should be? But Ian, his brother, actually thought about him too. "Why are you crying, Harry?" Ian looked at Harry's red eyes, a little at a loss. Don't cry, Harry." Harry sniffed and said with a smile, "I'm not crying, Ian. I'm just too happy." "Oh, that's good." Ian breathed a sigh of relief. "You scared me. I thought you didn't like this gift." "I like it very much. Ian, this is the best birthday gift I have ever received," Harry said with a smile. His eyes fell on the little green snake. A hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. "It's so beautiful, Ian." Ian smiled a little guilty. "Yeah, I think so too." Ronald on the side looked at Ian, then at Harry, and his envy of Harry in his heart went up a level. Look at the relationship between the two brothers. Look at him and his brothers. Alas, people are so annoying when they compare themselves to others. Chapter 11, Playing with Peter Pettigrew. Give the little girl a name, Harry. Ian took the little green snake out of the glass box and placed it in Harry's palm. Harry looked at the little green snake in front of him with its tongue spitting out and said with a smile, "Then call her Seraphina." Seraphina. Ian muttered the name and then looked at Harry with a smile. "Nice name, Harry." Harry smiled and touched Seraphina's head. The little green snake seemed to like the name very much and rubbed Harry's palm gently with its head. "Harry, have you thought about which college you will be assigned to?" Hermione sat next to Ian and asked suddenly. Harry scratched his head. "Ronald said that Professor Dumbledore is from Gryffindor, and Gryffindor is the best college, so... But the four colleges are essentially the same." Hermione said seriously. Harry shrank his neck. He felt that this future brother and sister seemed to be a girl who was a little serious. Gryffindor is of course the best. In fact, as long as it is not Slytherin, any college is good. Ronald hummed. "Why?" Harry asked curiously. Ronald looked around, then lowered his voice and said, "Because the mysterious man is from Slytherin, and all those bad wizards are graduates of Slytherin." Harry subconsciously clenched his fists when he heard the word mysterious man. Ian noticed Harry's little move, reached out and held Harry's hand. Harry looked at Ian's green eyes that were 70% similar to his, and the uneasiness in his heart slowly dissipated. Ronald looked at the two brothers in front of him and silently swallowed the words that had not yet been said. He wanted to say that the most famous symbol of Slytherin is the snake, a green snake. But now looking at the atmosphere between Ian and Harry, well, he should shut up. Have you tried to spell at home?" Ronald changed the subject, trying to ease the heavy atmosphere. "I tried, but..." Before Ronald finished speaking, he heard Hermione say, "Ian, I tried a few simple spells, all of which worked. What about you?" Harry shook his head. He hadn't read books these days. How could he try to spell? "Hey, Fred taught me a spell." Ronald confidently grabbed Scabbers, who was eating on his lap. "This is my mouse, Scabbers. This spell can turn it yellow." "Really?" Hermione asked curiously. "Can you show us?" "Wait," Ronald said, putting Scabbers on the table and pointing his wand at it. "Sunshine, Daisy, Butter, turn this silly mouse yellow." He waved his wand, but nothing happened. Scabbers was still gray, looking at Ronald with a confused face, as if he didn't know what happened. Ronald scratched his head awkwardly. "Well, maybe there is something wrong with my wand, or maybe the spell is not quite." Ian stared at the ugly mouse silently. The failure of the spell had nothing to do with the wand. Who made this mouse not an animal at all, but an animagus, and its true form was actually a wretched old man. Peter Pettigrew, the person who indirectly killed his parents. It's okay for him to punish him now, right? Just think of it as getting some interest back for Lily and James first. Ian thought maliciously. He took out his wand and chanted a simple levitation spell to the mouse. Wingardium Leviosa. Scabbers. No. Peter Pettigrew suddenly floated into the air, his limbs flailing around, looking very funny. "Wow, cool." Ronald looked at Scabbers floating in the air. His eyes widened. "Ian, you can actually master the levitation spell." Hermione and Harry looked at Ian with pride, as if they were being praised. "Nothing, just a simple levitation spell," Ian said modestly, but the smile on his face revealed his inner joy. Hermione also drew out her wand, but pointed it at Harry with a serious expression. "I also learned a little spell." Harry swallowed his saliva, and the whole person was stiff and dared not move. "Yes, what spell?" "Restore as before," Hermione whispered, and then a soft light burst out from the tip of the wand, covering Harry's glasses. There was a crack on Harry's glasses, and now under Hermione's spell, it slowly returned to its original state. "Oh my God!" Harry took off his glasses and checked them over and over again. "It's fixed." "Thank you, Hermione." Hermione smiled shyly. "Nothing. This spell is very simple." After the spell was cast, The four continued to chat for a long time. It was not until the train was about to arrive that Hermione finally snatched her boyfriend from Harry. "We're about to arrive. We'd better change into robes quickly." Hermione pulled Ian up and smiled at Harry and Ronald. "See you later, Harry, Ronald." "See you later, Ian, Hermione." Harry and Ronald also stood up, ready to change into wizard robes after the two left. Ian was pulled back to the original compartment by Hermione, and he keenly noticed that the little witch seemed a little unhappy. "What's wrong, Hermione?" Ian reached out and pinched Hermione's cheek. "Did I say something wrong?" Hermione pursed her lips, then threw herself into Ian's arms. "Ian, will you leave and go live with Harry at your aunt's house in the future?" "I don't want you to leave, Ian." Ian was stunned for a moment, then chuckled and hugged Hermione back. "No, Hermione, I will never leave you, and I will never go to live with my aunt." "Really?" Hermione raised her head from Ian's arms and looked at him with tears in her eyes. "Do you promise?" "I promise." Ian lowered his head and kissed Hermione's forehead. "Ian Potter will never leave you, Hermione Granger." The little witch's tears were soothed, and the two changed their clothes and walked out of the compartment hand in hand. After the train arrived at the station, Ian and the other four got off the train with the crowd and saw the extra-large human not far away. His body was abnormally large, twice as tall as a normal person, and at least 5 times as wide. He was wearing an oversized moleskin coat. His hair and beard were tangled together, almost covering most of his face. His hands were as big as trash can lids, and his feet in leather boots were like 2 little dolphins. "First-year wizards this way." Looking at Hagrid at the front, Harry's eyes lit up, and he rushed to the front with Ian, leaving Hermione and Ronald behind. "Hagrid." Hermione gritted her teeth and stared at Harry's back, as if she wanted to poke a few holes in Harry's body with her eyes. "Damn savior. Ian kidnapped her again. Is being a brother so great?" Ronald watched from the side and couldn't help shuddering. "Oh my God, Hermione's eyes are too scary." Chapter 12, Cassandra Worley, Hagrid. Harry rushed to Hagrid and gave him a big hug. "Oh, Harry, long time no see." Hagrid patted Harry's back, then let go of him and looked at Ian beside him. His eyes touched the familiar red hair and green eyes, and the appearance similar to that of an old friend, and the eyes of this oversized human were instantly red. You're Ian? You are really still alive? Merlin bless. Ian, you look so much like your mother, Lily." Hagrid said, and actually began to sob. Ian looked at the tall man, crying a little helplessly. "Hello, Hagrid." "Oh, Ian, the last time I saw you, you were only as big as my palm. We all thought you were with James and Lily, and I failed to protect you, Ian." At the end, Hagrid was choked with sobs and couldn't speak. Ian looked at Hagrid crying and felt very uncomfortable. Although he didn't have many memories of James and Lily, he couldn't help but want to comfort Hagrid when he saw him so sad. "Hagrid, don't cry. I'm fine, aren't I?" Ian patted Hagrid's arm. "Besides, I found my brother, Harry." Hagrid looked at Harry with tears in his eyes. "Yes, Harry is your brother, a real brother. One of you looks like James, and the other looks like Lily." Harry also stepped forward and patted Hagrid's other arm. "Hagrid, don't cry. We will all be fine." Hagrid sniffed and wiped his face randomly. Okay, I won't cry. Let's go. I still have to take you first-year students to take a boat ride." Hermione and Ronald also walked to Ian's side at this time. Hermione looked at Ian worriedly and saw that he was fine, so she was relieved. Let's go take a boat ride." Ian took Hermione's hand and followed Hagrid to the lake. The first-year wizards followed Hagrid in black school uniforms. At first glance, they really looked like a long black ribbon moving toward the lake. When they reached the lake, the wizards saw the small wooden boats moored on the lake. "Children, we should go to Hogwarts by wooden boats like the 4 founders did. This is a glorious tradition." Harry and Ian took the lead in Quack Quack, and there was thunderous applause for a while. The wizards were very respectful to Hagrid. Hagrid was a little shy because of the applause, and a blush appeared on his dark face. Okay, everyone get on the boat. For people in a boat." Hagrid commanded the wizards to get on a boat with 4 people, and then he took the lead to get on the big boat in front. Ian and the other 4 chose the same boat tacitly, and then got on it together. After everyone was seated, Hagrid led them to Hogwarts. The boat was moving slowly, and the little wizards were very excited. They looked left and right. Some naughty little wizards reached out to catch the small fish in the lake, but were stopped by Hagrid. Ian sat on the boat, looking at the castle getting closer and closer, and was also very excited. Hogwarts. He was going to go to school at Hogwarts soon. I didn't know which house he would be assigned to. Ian subconsciously looked at Harry beside him. His father, his mother, and his brother were all Gryffindor. So would he also be assigned to Gryffindor? However, he might also be assigned to Ravenclaw or Hufflepuff. After all, in his previous life, he saw someone in the forum say that if their Chinese children were assigned to houses, they would generally be Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff. Ian was thinking about it, and the boat had already docked at the ferry of Hogwarts. Okay, kids, we're here. Hagrid stood up and turned to look at the little wizards. Welcome to Hogwarts. The little wizards got off the boat one by one and followed Hagrid towards the castle. The castle gates slowly opened, and a tall witch in an emerald green dress walked out. Professor McGonagall. Hagrid saw Professor McGonagall, immediately stood up and shouted respectfully. Seeing this, the little wizards also followed suit and shouted, Professor McGonagall. Hagrid, I will take care of these little wizards. Professor McGonagall nodded to Hagrid, then turned his eyes to the little wizards. Welcome to Hogwarts. I hope you will have a happy and fulfilling semester here. In a little while, you will pass through this door and have dinner in the hall with your seniors. Professor McGonagall nodded to Hagrid, then turned his eyes to the little wizards. But before that, you have to be sorted. Professor McGonagall introduced the 4 major colleges to the little wizards, and then walked into the hall to report to Dumbledore. After Professor McGonagall left, Hermione grabbed Ian's robe with some worry. Do you know how to sort the houses? Will there be an exam? Ronald's face turned pale as if some bad memories were evoked. My brother said that we have to duel with trolls. Except for Ian, who knew about it a long time ago. The rest of the little wizards exclaimed. Draco heard the noise and walked over with his 2 younger brothers, smiling disdainfully. A mere troll scared you so much? But my dad said that we may also duel with dragons. Ian looked at the other party's cowardly appearance and couldn't help teasing him. It seems that you are very experienced. How about you duel with trolls or dragons for us later? Ian Potter. You. Draco was interrupted by the screams of other little wizards before he finished speaking. Ian Potter. It's Ian Potter, the Potter who has been missing for 11 years. Then the person next to him is Harry Potter. Look, Harry Potter has a lightning scar on his forehead. The legend is true. Ian listened to the exclamations of the people around him and rubbed his temple helplessly. It seems that being too famous is not good. It turns out that the rumors are true. The Potter brothers really came to Hogwarts to study. As soon as the familiar lines came into his ears, Ian subconsciously turned his head to look at the person who spoke. Draco inexplicably felt that this sentence was very much to his taste, and also turned his head to see who was so good at talking. When he saw the familiar blonde hair and the small black mole at the corner of the other person's eye, Draco decisively hid behind. Cassandra Wallace. Why is it this guy? Ian Potter is going to be unlucky. Cassandra is not easy to mess with. Cassandra saw Draco hiding behind him and didn't say anything. She just looked around Ian and Harry and finally fixed her eyes on Ian. Hello, I'm Cassandra Worley. Cassandra walked to Ian and stood in front of him, greeting him elegantly. Looking at the proud, blonde, little lowly in front of him, Ian was a little confused. Cassandra Worley? Isn't she a character in the game? How could she appear here? System, give me an explanation. Ian shouted to the system frantically in his heart. Ding, at $caret system, percent at 34%. Don't pretend to be garbled when you don't agree with me. Ian cursed in his heart. What's the matter with this Cassandra? How could she appear here? Ding, important heroine detected. Cassandra Worley, with pure wizard blood, proud, elegant, and powerful. Host can capture Cassandra. ZZ. The system started playing garbled code again, but Ian didn't have time to deal with it this time. Because he found that Cassandra's expression was a little wrong. Her brows were furrowed, and her face showed an unhappy expression. Ian realized belatedly that he had just talked to the system in his mind, and seemed to have ignored Cassandra. Seeing Cassandra's face getting darker and darker, Ian's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly raised a smile to try to save it. "Miss Volley, hello. I am Ian Potter. Nice to meet you." Cassandra's face looked better, and she nodded reservedly. "I know you, Ian Potter, the other savior in the legend." "Ah, if there is no other person named Ian Potter, it should be me." Ian scratched his head awkwardly. "Very good. I remember you." Cassandra looked at Ian deeply, then turned and left. "Remember me? What does this mean?" Ian looked at Cassandra's back, confused. Before Ian could figure out, Professor McGonagall came out and motioned for the freshmen to follow her into the auditorium. Ian was full of excitement about the sorting and put Cassandra's matter behind him, pulling Harry and a few others to catch up with the main group. Chapter 13. Sorting ceremony. Students from other classes in the 4 major colleges were already sitting around 4 long tables, and thousands of candles floating in the air above the tables illuminated the restaurant. The 4 tables were decorated with glittering golden plates and high-footed wine glasses. There was another long table on the table at the top of the restaurant, which was the seat for teachers. If you looked up, you could see stars twinkling on the velvety black ceiling. This is a magic ceiling, which looks like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, A History of the School. Hermione explained to the others in a low voice. Ian grabbed Hermione's hand and focused his eyes on the 4-corner bench at the front of the hall. On the 4-corner bench was a tattered wizard hat that looked like it had not been washed for hundreds of years. The folds on the hat formed a mouth. As the young wizards gradually approached it, the wrinkled mouth opened and closed and sang a song. At the front of the auditorium was a square stool, on which was placed a tattered wizard hat that looked like it had not been washed for hundreds of years. The wrinkles on the hat formed a mouth. You may think I'm not pretty, but don't judge people by appearance. If you can find a hat smarter than mine, I can eat myself. You can make your bowler hat black and shiny, and your top hat smooth and straight. I am the top hat used for Hogwarts tests, so I'm naturally taller than your hats. Any thoughts hidden in your mind cannot escape the golden eyes of the magic hat. Try it on, and I will tell you which college you should be assigned to. You may belong to Gryffindor, where there is courage buried in the heart. Their courage, spirit, and chivalry make Gryffindor stand out. You may belong to Hufflepuff, where people are upright and loyal. Hufflepuff students are perseverant and honest, and are not afraid of hard work. If you are smart, you may enter the wise old Ravenclaw. Those wise and knowledgeable people will always meet their peers there. Maybe you will enter Slytherin. Maybe you make sincere friends here, but those cunning, insidious generations will not hesitate to achieve their purpose. Professor Agal took out a roll of sheepskin paper and expanded. Next, who I call someone who will wear a hat, sit on the stool, and listen to the branch. Hearing this, the remaining little wizards have aimed at Ronald, who just said, "Oh, Weasley, this is the giant monster you said. I must make Fred's look good." Ronald blushed and whispered, "Malfoy, do you still say me? You just said to fight with the dragon." Draco's face changed. Okay, I said, it's not the quarrel now." Ian interrupted the two helplessly. At this time, Professor McGonagall had already read out the first name. Hannah Abbott. A ruddy little girl walked out of the queue nervously, put on the sorting hat, and sat on the 4-legged stool. Hufflepuff. A minute later, the sorting hat called out her house, and warm applause rang out at the Hufflepuff table. With the first one coming forward to sort, there was the second and third, and soon Professor McGonagall called out, "Hermione Granger." Ian patted the little witch's hand and comforted her. "Don't be nervous, Hermione." Hermione took a deep breath, walked to the front, and put on the sorting hat. I can see that you are very smart. Yes. Ravenclaw might be happy to have you." The voice of the sorting hat sounded in Hermione's ears. "Oh, courage, a very brave little witch. Then, Gryffindor." Finally, the sorting hat shouted out the house, and the Gryffindor long table applauded, welcoming this smart and brave little witch. Hermione took off the sorting hat and ran to the Gryffindor table with a look of surprise. When passing Ian, Hermione smiled at her future boyfriend, and the meaning was obvious. "You must come to Gryffindor." Professor McGonagall then called out the names of several people. most of whom were little wizards from Hufflepuff. Draco Malfoy. Draco instantly raised his head and chest, strode forward like a proud little peacock, and sat on the four-legged stool. Before the Sorting Hat touched the soft golden hair on his head, he screamed, "Slytherin!" There was a burst of applause at the Slytherin table. Draco glanced at Ian and the others with a little pride, as if he had known the result long ago, and strode to the Slytherin table. Ian and the others waited for a while, and finally heard the name Harry Potter. Almost in an instant, everyone in the hall looked at Harry, and the discussion was several times louder than when Draco was sorted. Harry pursed his lips nervously, walked forward, and put on the Sorting Hat. The voice of the Sorting Hat sounded again. "It's hard. I can see that you are very courageous, and you're not bad at heart. You have talent and the desire to prove yourself. So, where should you be sorted?" Hearing the muttering of the Sorting Hat, Harry closed his eyes nervously. "You really look alike in everything, this damn choice. Don't go to Slytherin. Don't go to Slytherin." Harry suddenly remembered what Ronald said before. Slytherin is all bad wizards, and the mysterious man is also Slytherin, and hurriedly whispered, "Not going to Slytherin? Are you sure?" The voice of the Sorting Hat sounded again. "If you are in Slytherin, you may be able to do something big. Not going to Slytherin, not going to Slytherin. Well, since you insist, then." The Sorting Hat saw Harry's determination, and its voice suddenly became louder. "Gryffindor." Hearing this result, the Gryffindor long table instantly burst into applause, and the cheers almost overturned the roof of the auditorium. "We have Potter! We have Potter!" Harry took off the Sorting Hat and ran to the Gryffindor long table with a sense of relief. When he passed Ian and Ronald, he waved vigorously. Ian smiled back, and then silently waited for Professor McGonagall to call him. Is Harry still him after this? Sure enough, after the noise gradually subsided, Professor McGonagall's voice sounded again. "Ian Potter!" The whole audience was in an uproar again. All eyes were once again focused on Ian at the front. Just as Ian was about to take a step, he heard Ronald whisper beside him, "Ian, you must go to Gryffindor. All of us Weasleys are Gryffindors. Harry and Hermione are also in Gryffindor. The four of us must be together." Ian smiled, did not answer, strode forward, sat on the four-legged stool, and put on the Sorting Hat. "System, the Sorting Hat can't detect you, right?" he suddenly asked in his heart. "Ding. Please rest assured, host. No one could detect the existence of this system." Ian was relieved and immediately used the brain occlusion technique to let the Sorting Hat see what he wanted it to see. No wonder he was so cautious. What if the idea in his mind was secretly told to Dumbledore by this dead hat? Wouldn't his previous play be in vain? Chapter 14, Slytherin. Interesting, interesting. Another Potter. Let me see which house you are suitable for. The voice of the Sorting Hat sounded in Ian's ears. "Well, with your extraordinary intelligence, Ravenclaw will like children like you, and with your excellent character, Hufflepuff will also open the door to you. If you want to achieve great things, then Slytherin is not bad. It's really hard to choose, even harder than the Potter kid just now." "Oh, what about Gryffindor?" Ian asked tentatively. The Sorting Hat immediately rejected Ian. "No, no, no. You are not suitable for Gryffindor. Although you are not cowardly, your courage is not desperate and passionate, but, well, how to say it, like a sword with a hidden edge, pursuing a one-shot kill. Ian, why don't you sort me into Gryffindor? I think it's good there. My friends are all in that house." Ian smiled politely. "Except Slytherin, anywhere is fine." If he was sorted to the Snake House by this damn hat, Dumbledore would probably think too much again. TSK. Suspicious old bee. Let me think, childhood sweethearts, a little Gryffindor which who was born in Muggle, and a half-blood wizard. The Sorting Hat muttered, then, Slytherin. Harry and Hermione were so shocked to hear this result that they stood up from their chairs, and even Ronald showed a look of astonishment. How is this possible? How could Ian go to Slytherin? There must be something wrong with the Sorting Hat. Harry couldn't accept this fact and said loudly. Although Hermione was also surprised, she was more worried about Ian's mood at the moment than Harry's disbelief. What? Me? Ian Potter? Slytherin? Ian's eyes widened instantly, and he questioned the Sorting Hat with an unbelievable look on his face. Are you old and broken? How do you meet the standard of Slytherin's ambitious person? This is clearly slander. It's slander. No mistake, Slytherin, it's Slytherin. The Sorting Hat sounded a little proud. Believe me, you are really suitable for Slytherin. You will achieve great things there. Slytherin, Slytherin. The Sorting Hat repeated loudly again. Hearing this result again, Professor Cat was surprised. The old bee looked solemn, and only a certain black bat's eyes lit up. At the Gryffindor long table, many people were clamoring to let Ian be sorted again. In their opinion, Ian is Harry Potter's younger brother and also a savior, so he should not be sorted into Slytherin. Quiet. Dumbledore had to shout loudly, and the situation was under control again. The Sorting Hat will not make mistakes. Since it has made a decision, it must have its reasons. Dumbledore looked at Ian, his eyes revealing some deep meaning. Mr. Potter, since you have been sorted into Slytherin, I hope you can become an excellent Slytherin. Ian was in a subtle mood at the moment, but he immediately put on a decent smile. I know, Professor Dumbledore. The blue eyes behind the lenses flashed, and he said gently, "Go to your college, Ian." Ian nodded slightly and looked in the direction of Slytherin. The long table was still silent, and the senior students looked surprised and hesitant. Draco glanced at Ian, who was standing still, and seemed to have thought of something, and took the lead in applauding. We have Potter in Slytherin too. Professor Snape also had a faint smile on his lips, staring at Ian with burning eyes, and clapped slowly and rhythmically. The applause gradually sounded, from sparse to warm and neat. Ian took a deep breath, took a step, and walked towards the Slytherin table. Now that things have come to this, he should stay in Slytherin. Just think of it as infiltrating the enemy. When Ian passed by the Gryffindor table, Harry and Hermione immediately stood up and looked at him with worry. Ian. Hermione's eyes were red. She now admitted that Ronald had some truth in what he said. Most of the students in Slytherin were not good people. What should I do? How can her Ian survive in Slytherin? Harry and Hermione had the same idea. In his opinion, his brother was a simple little sheep who strayed into a wolf pack. Don't worry. Ian smiled at the two of them soothingly. I'll be fine. You should take care of yourself too. Hermione sniffed. Ian, you have to take care of yourself. Okay, you have to take care of yourself too. Ian nodded and continued to walk towards Slytherin. The Slytherin students were all staring at him, looking at him with a little scrutiny. Ian was not surprised by this kind of look. He estimated that these pure-blood families who were good at betting on both sides were already thinking about whether they should contact him, the savior of Slytherin. Draco raised his chin and motioned Ian to sit in the empty seat next to him. Ian's mouth twitched. This unlucky child. Forget it, for the sake of his leading the applause to help him out. Ian walked to Draco and sat down. I didn't expect you to really come to Slytherin. Draco glanced at Ian and said awkwardly, It's really strange. I thought you would go to Gryffindor like your brother. Ian shrugged. I didn't expect it either. It doesn't matter. You will slowly like Slytherin. Draco snorted, his tone proud. We're the best college. Ian smiled non-committally and didn't respond. After the Potter brothers' small turmoil in the sorting ceremony continued. As a child of the Weasley family, Ronald was sorted into Gryffindor without any surprise. Slytherin also had a few more students, Pansy Parkinson, Blaise Zabini, and Theodore Nott. And Cassandra Worley. Like Draco, the sorting had almost just brushed Cassandra's head before calling out her sorting result. Slytherin. Cassandra stood up gracefully and walked towards the Slytherin table with a haughty look. When she passed Ian, she paused slightly, glanced at him sideways, and opened her red lips slightly. Potter, having had the experience of displeasing the eldest lady last time, Ian immediately responded politely. Hello, Miss Worley. Cassandra didn't say anything. Her eyes were fixed on Draco next to Ian, and she raised her eyebrows at him. The meaning was self-evident. So, in Ian's slightly surprised eyes, Draco took the initiative to give up the seat on Ian's right, and then drove away the person on Ian's left and sat over. Cassandra smiled with satisfaction and sat down on Ian's right-hand side calmly. Ian's mouth twitched, and he pulled Draco over and whispered, I say, you're not. You surrendered with a look? Didn't you say you were from the 28th Sacred Pureblood family? Where's your face? Where's your pride? Draco secretly glanced at Cassandra, and seeing that she didn't pay attention to this side, he whispered to Ian, Potter, you don't understand how terrible this guy is. How terrible? Ian recalled Cassandra's pretty face and her perfect family background, and couldn't help asking Draco, how terrible can a beautiful girl like her be? Draco looked at Ian with horror, as if he saw a fool. Oh my God, Potter, you don't really believe that she is a weak girl. Ian frowned. No? This guy is simply crazy. Draco lowered his voice and told Ian about his first encounter with Cassandra. You should know that children from pureblood families know each other when they are very young. Although the Wallace family is not one of the 28 holy pureblood families, its family background is also top-notch. We have played together since we were young. Draco recalled. The first time I met Wallace was at a birthday party held at her house. We were only 5 years old at that time. Because Wallace is an only child and looks cute, almost everyone wants to be friends with her. But guess what? Draco looked horrified. She beat down all the boys who talked to her. Such a young girl. Not only has amazing strength, but also fights very fiercely. Draco patted his chest with lingering fear. I also wanted to talk to her at that time, but when I saw her punch a boy older than me and make him cry, I didn't want to be friends with her. Speaking of this, Draco's face was still a little embarrassed. Ian was surprised. So exaggerated? Not at all. That guy's very arrogant. Draco continued. Vorley never makes friends with anyone, always keeps to himself, and looks down on all pure-blood families. In fact, have you ever thought that you are also quite arrogant? Ian looked at Draco with a strange look. Draco was stunned, and then a little annoyed. Potter, if you can't even stand me, then you'd better not provoke Volley. Ian didn't know whether to laugh or cry. I didn't mean to provoke her. She came over on her own. He didn't even understand how the eldest lady could turn from a game character into a real little witch. So how could he provoke her? Chapter 15, Cassandra. You are more handsome than your brother. After the sorting ceremony, Dumbledore gave a speech to the freshmen as usual. Before the dinner begins, there are a few things to be aware of. First, freshmen are not allowed to enter the Forbidden Forest. This is a very dangerous behavior. Ian listened to Dumbledore's precautions and complained in his heart. This old man does this every year, but it's completely useless. All I can say is that those who should go to the Forbidden Forest will still go. The forbidden areas that should be entered will still be entered, and those who should die will not be reduced at all. Anyway, regardless of others, Ian Potter, before he has enough strength, he will never go to the Forbidden Forest to die. Whoever goes will be a dog. Ian's scalp is numb just thinking about that pile of 8-eyed giant spiders in his mind. He really doesn't understand why Hagrid can cultivate such a terrible monster. However, considering that the 3-headed dog guarding the Philosopher's Stone is also a pet raised by Hagrid, Ian doesn't think it's strange. Ian thought, no matter what kind of scary animal it was, Hagrid would probably try to raise it. Speaking of the Philosopher's Stone, Ian thought of the noseless monster. The Philosopher's Stone, also known as the Philosopher's Stone, can turn any metal into pure gold. It can also create an elixir of life, making people who drink this medicine immortal forever. Therefore, this is definitely a fatal temptation for Voldemort, who is already half dead. Dumbledore is also willing to spend a lot of money. In order to give Harry enough training, he took the only remaining Philosopher's Stone of the 600-year-old man to fish for Voldemort. And poor, stupid Voldemort, like a donkey eager to eat the carrot tied to his head, was led by Dumbledore by the nose and fell into the trap that had been set step by step. Ian reasonably suspected that Voldemort must have been rebounded by Lily's mother's love spell. Otherwise, how could he not even see such an obvious trap? Secondly, our administrator, Mr. Filch, asked me to remind you that the corridor on the right-hand side of the 3rd floor is also a forbidden area. If you don't want to die ugly, it's best not to go. Ian was originally thinking about Voldemort's IQ, and when he heard this sentence, he subconsciously curled his lips. Old Dumbledore had already thrown the bait, and the next step was to wait for the noseless monster to take the bait. Finally, I want to say that there are many secrets in Hogwarts. You will learn and grow here, but some secrets should remain mysterious. Curiosity sometimes kills people. I hope you can cherish your life. Finally, I want to say idiot, crybaby, dregs, twist. Okay, thank you everyone. The dinner officially begins. After Dumbledore finished speaking, he waved his hands, and all kinds of food appeared on the long tables of the 4 colleges. Ian was already very hungry. As soon as Dumbledore's voice fell, he couldn't wait to taste the food on the table. I have to say that the food at Hogwarts tastes very good, especially the desserts, which are even more delicious. Ian chatted with Draco while eating and glanced at Cassandra from time to time. Cassandra was sitting on Ian's right. She was cutting steaks slowly and gracefully, and she didn't look at all the ferocious look of punching a kid with one punch, in Draco's words. Potter. Cassandra gently pressed the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief, lowered her eyes, and looked at Ian. You have been looking at me. She used an affirmative sentence, without any doubt. Ian was caught peeking, but he was not embarrassed at all. Instead, he nodded calmly. Yes. I'm more curious about Miss Volley. Cassandra raised her eyebrows. Curious about what? Curious why you took the initiative to approach me. Ian asked the doubts in his heart directly. Miss Volley should not be someone who likes to make friends actively, right? Cassandra looked at Ian for a few seconds and suddenly chuckled. Because you are very special, Potter. Oh, what's special? Ian frowned. Because, Cassandra said slowly, you are the savior. Ian's mouth twitched. Just because of this? Then my brother is also a savior. Why don't you approach him? He is different. Cassandra shook her head. He is different from you. What's different? Ian pointed to his face. Although we don't look alike, we are twins after all. Of course you are different. Cassandra leaned closer to Ian and smiled slightly. You look better than him. Ian, he looked at Cassandra speechlessly. Miss Volley, your reason is too perfunctory, isn't it? Perfunctory? Cassandra blinked and sat back in her seat. But I'm telling the truth. She really thinks Ian is very good-looking, much better than that Harry Potter. Anyway, her father asked her to get close to the savior, but he didn't say which one to get close to. Of course, she chose the prettier one, and the prettier one was admitted to Slytherin. Ian was speechless, and just as he was about to say something, he suddenly felt a burning gaze falling on him. He looked up and met Hermione's angry eyes. Ian's heart skipped a beat. It's over. He hadn't even planned to capture Cassandra, yet Hermione caught him being too close to other little witches. It's over. Hermione looked at Ian coldly, her eyes full of, you are a half-hearted bad wizard. Ian quickly showed Hermione a flattering smile. However, Hermione didn't buy it. She glared at Ian coldly, then turned around and talked to Harry and Ronald. Ian, well, it seems that it is not an easy thing to coax the little childhood sweetheart. He rubbed his temple helplessly and turned to look at Cassandra. Miss Volley, you just caused me a big trouble. Cassandra looked at Ian blankly. Huh? What trouble? Nothing. Ian sighed. Eat your meal. Although Cassandra didn't understand what Ian was saying, she still lowered her head obediently and continued to eat dinner slowly. After dinner, led by the Sorting Hat, the teachers and students of Hogwarts began to sing the school song. Everyone can choose the tune they like to sing. Dumbledore took the wand and acted as a conductor. Hogwarts, 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 please teach us some knowledge. Whether we are bald old men or young boys with scars on their knees, our heads need to be filled with some interesting things because now they are empty and full of air. Ian sang a few sentences with everyone and couldn't help twitching at the corners of his mouth. Who wrote this lyrics? It's too weird, right? Who would like to sing this kind of song? Oh, there really is one. Ian silently looked at the Weasley twins who used the funeral tone and the loudest voice and silently gave them a thumbs up in his heart. These two are talented. Chapter 16. Slytherin hidden prefect. After the song was over, Ian was too tired to complain. The school song of Hogwarts is really unique. After the dinner, Dumbledore said a few more words and asked the prefects to take the freshmen back to the dormitory to rest. During this time, Ian kept looking in the direction of Gryffindor, but unfortunately, Hermione ignored him at all. Harry's heart and eyes were full of Ian, but he could only watch his brother's figure gradually disappear in front of him with the steps of the Slytherin prefect. The prefect of Slytherin is a beautiful witch named Gemma Farley. As for the male prefect, named Monta, he was already ignored by Ian. Congratulations, I am the prefect Gemma Farley, and I'm glad that you can come to Slytherin College. Gemma led the freshmen out of the hall and walked all the way to the Slytherin underground dormitory. I like our school emblem, the giant snake, which represents cunning, powerful, and often misunderstood. You may have heard rumors about Slytherin. We all like to study dark magic. Slytherin only recruits students whose families are famous wizards and other rumors. You shouldn't believe what the competing schools say. Gemma paused. Especially Gryffindor, yes, often smears a Slytherin. Of course, I don't deny that our school has produced some dark wizards, but the other three schools also have dark wizards, they just don't want to admit it. Although we tend to recruit descendants of famous wizard families, you can also find that many Slytherin students have at least one parent who is a muggle. Ian nodded subconsciously when he heard this. It should be said that the beautiful female prefect's words are not wrong. Gryffindor always says that Slytherin is a gathering place for dark wizards, but Peter Pettigrew is also from Gryffindor. If there is a house that has never produced a dark wizard, it is Hufflepuff. In the final battle against Voldemort, Slytherin chose not to participate for well-known reasons. Half of Ravenclaw joined, and almost all Hufflepuff members chose to stay, which is equal to the number of Gryffindor. Gryffindor lions are brave on the one hand, and they love to show off on the other hand. Hufflepuff's reasons for staying are different. They're not showing off or acting rashly. Hufflepuff's students know what kind of danger they will face, but they still choose to stay. Because Hufflepuff is the most righteous house, their house spirit is integrity, loyalty, honesty, and fearlessness of hardship. They are tough and worthy of respect. Ian was lost in thought when he suddenly felt someone poking his back. He turned around and met Cassandra's light green eyes. "What's wrong?" Ian looked at Cassandra and raised his eyebrows slightly. "If I don't remind you, you'll be left behind." Cassandra pointed to the front, and Ian realized that the freshman team had walked a long way. Ian smiled at Cassandra. "Thank you, Miss Volley." "You're welcome." Cassandra glanced at Ian indifferently. "Next time you walk, pay attention and don't be dazed." "Ian, this girl is really a bit of a proud lady." Gemma led everyone to turn a corner and continued. "I want to tell you a fact that the other three houses are silent about. The Great Merlin is also a student of Slytherin. Yes, Merlin himself, the most famous wizard in history. All his knowledge was obtained from Slytherin College. Do you want to follow in Merlin's footsteps? Or would you rather follow the former Hufflepuff student to invent a rag that can wash itself?" I think the answer is obvious. Watching Gemma's speech, Ian felt that she would say "Long live Slytherin" in the next second. But then again, why do Gemma's words sound like a brainwashing package for joining Slytherin? Could it be that all dark wizards have the potential to be pyramid schemers? He remembered that a certain expelled Durmstrang student was very good at pyramid schemes. As Ian thought about it, he followed the large group to the Slytherin common room, which was located underground and very humid. Pure blood. Gemma said the password to the stone wall at the door of the common room. Ian curled his lips. This password really didn't surprise him. As Gemma said the password, a door suddenly appeared on the stone wall, slowly moving to the side, revealing the common room inside. The password of the common room will be changed every 2 weeks. Please check the notice board. You're not allowed to bring students from other colleges to our common room, and you must tell them our password. We have not allowed outsiders to enter our common room for 700 years. As Gemma said this, she led everyone into the common room. Ian looked around curiously. The Slytherin common room was indeed very Slytherin style. The common room was located at the bottom of the lake. Facing the stone door was a whole piece of glass. Looking from the inside out, the entire common room was in a black lake. The walls were made of black Gothic marble, and there were green tapestries hanging on the walls, embroidered with silver snake patterns. The ceiling was a transparent semicircle carved from crystal, and you could see the shimmering waves above your head. Ian secretly smacked his lips. Although living at the bottom of the lake might cause rheumatism, It should be said that Slytherin's taste was really good. The boys' dormitory is on the left, and the girls' dormitory is on the right. Your luggage has been placed in your respective dormitories. Gemma pointed to the passages on both sides of the lounge. Remember not to go the wrong way. Of course, there were boys who went the wrong way before, and then they were thrown out by the spell on the dormitory door and stayed in the medical wing for a month. Gemma smiled and glanced at the boys. Ian's mouth twitched. This was not a reminder, but a threat. Naked threat. Okay, that's all I have to say. I hope you can spend a happy 7 years in Slytherin. Gemma clapped her hands. Next is your first year home court. After saying that, she turned and left. First year home court? What does it mean? Ian was wondering when he heard a low voice in his ear. I am your Dean Severus Snape, and I will also be your potion professor. Ian turned his head and saw the man with greasy black hair and a black robe that was so wide that it could drag on the ground. The overall image he gave was that of a standing big bat. There are 24 prefects in Hogwarts, 1 male and 1 female prefect for each grade from 5th to 7th. But we Slytherins have our own rules. Each grade in Slytherin will have 2 prefects, 1 male and 1 female, who are responsible for managing the students of their own college grade. Snape walked slowly to the center of the lounge. His eyes slowly swept across the faces of the first-year students and stayed on Ian for a while. What you have to do now is to elect 2 first-year prefects, 1 male and 1 female. Those who are willing to participate take turns to walk to the center of this lounge and duel with others. The winner in the end is the prefect. Ian pursed his lips. This way of selecting prefects is really simple and crude. He looked around and found that the faces of other Slytherin freshmen showed excitement and eagerness to try. Even Cassandra's eyes flashed with a hint of heat. Ian, well, it's worthy of being Slytherin. Chapter 17, New Identity. Potter Prefect. Well, those who want to run for prefect can stand up now. Snape said lightly. As soon as he finished speaking, several boys stood up impatiently. Ian took a glance and saw familiar faces. The boys were Draco Malfoy, Theodore Nott, and Blaise Zabini. The girls were Cassandra Worley, Daphne Greengrass, and Pansy Parkinson. Wow, they're all little wizards from pure blood families, not a single half-blood. Isn't our Mr. Potter going to run? Snape's eyes suddenly turned to Ian, and a hint of playfulness appeared at the corner of his mouth. I remember you stole the show at the sorting ceremony. Ian, he just wanted the sorting hat to quickly sort him into Gryffindor, who knew that the hat would do so many tricks. Ian took a deep breath and slowly stood up under the gaze of everyone. I want to run professor. Snape saw the determination in those green eyes, and he chuckled. Very good. Then all candidates come to the middle. Lily, this child looks a lot like you. Watching Ian walk to the center of the lounge, Snape's thoughts could not help but drift back to 20 years ago. At that time, he and Lily were still friends. They sat on the Hogwarts Express together, went to Diagon Alley to buy wands together, and walked into Hogwarts Castle together. But later, because of that incident, they gradually drifted apart until finally they were separated by the yin and yang. Professor? Ian's voice interrupted Snape's memories, and he came back to his senses and found that Ian was looking at him in confusion. Can we start? Snape stared at the green eyes that were the same as those of his old friend, and a trace of pain and regret flashed in his eyes. If he had not been so young and impetuous at the beginning, if he had been braver and more determined, wouldn't he and Lily have come to that point? Will I be able to stay with Lily forever? Snape lowered his eyes to hide the emotions in his eyes, and when he looked up again, he was the cold Slytherin headmaster again. He waved his wand, and 3 circular dueling arenas appeared in the center of the lounge, surrounded by transparent magic barriers. Let's start 2 people in a group and duel. Ian, Draco, Theodore, and Blaise walked into the dueling arena and looked at each other in pairs. Let's do it together. Ian decisively chose the most familiar Draco as his opponent. Draco rolled his eyes. Potter, I won't let you go. I hope you can still be so arrogant when I knock you down later. Ian raised his eyebrows at Draco, and then they raised their wands at the same time. Hot and hot. Armor protection. All petrified. Ian blocked the attack, and then took the opportunity to cast a petrified spell on Draco. Draco stood stiffly in place, with an unbelievable look on his face. I lost. Ian walked to Draco and patted his shoulder. When you learn armor protection in the 5th grade, remember to learn this spell well, Draco. After that, he removed the petrification spell on Draco. Draco was still doubting his life. He couldn't understand why he failed in just one encounter. Theodore and Blaise also fought out the winner, and Theodore won in the end. Next, it's the two of you. Snape pointed at Ian and Theodore. Ian and Theodore walked to the center of the duel field, bowed slightly, and then raised their wands at the same time. Stand still. Expelliarmus. Ian dodged Theodore's leg retraction curse, and then used Expelliarmus to knock Theodore's wand away. Theodore watched his wand fly to the edge of the duel field, and couldn't help but smile bitterly. I lost. Thank you. Ian walked to Theodore and handed him the wand. At this point, the candidates for the boys' class leader have been determined. On the other side, the girls' duel was also in full swing. In the end, Cassandra Worley won. Then, from now on, Ian Potter and Cassandra Waller will be the hidden prefects of our first-year Slytherin. Snape glanced at the students in the lounge. I hope you can set a good example and lead your classmates well. Yes, Professor. Ian and Cassandra answered at the same time. Snape nodded, then turned and left the lounge. As soon as he left, the lounge exploded. Draco walked awkwardly to Ian. Potter, I admit that you are quite powerful. You are qualified to be a friend of Malfoy. Draco felt much more comfortable when he saw that Theodore was also defeated in one move. One's own failure is terrible, but the success of a friend is even more chilling. You're not bad, Draco. Ian patted Draco's shoulder with a smile. Okay, don't be unhappy. It's not that you're too weak. It's just that I'm too strong. Who allowed you to call me by my Christian name? Draco muttered softly. Besides, I'm not unhappy. Looking at Draco's awkward look, Ian shrugged. Theodore also came over and looked at Ian with fiery eyes. Prefect. Theodore, just call me Ian. Ian looked at Theodore's fanatical look and couldn't help but take a step back. What kind of look is this guy? This is Britain, a British tradition, hiss. Could not be. Thinking of this, Ian took 2 steps back. Looking at Ian's evasive look, Theodore was stunned for a moment, and then reacted. Ian might have misunderstood. He quickly explained, Ian, don't get me wrong, I just admire powerful wizards. You could perform the weapon of exorcism when you just entered school. You know, this is something we can only learn in the 2nd year. After hearing Theodore's explanation, Ian was relieved. So that's it, I thought. Thought what? Theodore looked at Ian in confusion. Nothing, nothing. Ian waved his hand and turned to look at the other side. Cassandra was surrounded by a group of girls, asking her about dueling skills. Although she still looked high and mighty and ignored people, she couldn't hide the pride and pride in her eyes. Ian smiled and turned to look at the flames dancing in the fireplace. It has been 11 years since he came to this world, and he finally took the first step. Slytherin's hidden prefect. This is a good start. Chapter 18. Blushing Miss Volley. It was getting late, and everyone went to their dormitories one after another. Slytherin's dormitory was different from Gryffindor's 5-person dormitory, but a 2-person dormitory. Ian's roommate happened to be Draco. Potter. Draco suddenly called Ian, who was about to rest. What's wrong? Ian turned to look at Draco. Draco hesitated for a moment, then whispered, We are friends, right? Draco, I thought my attitude was already very clear. Ian smiled and looked at Draco. This platinum guy is really arrogant, which is quite interesting. Then, let's get to know each other again. Draco took a deep breath, then stretched out his hand. Hello, Ian. I'm Draco Malfoy. Hello, Draco. I'm Ian Potter. Ian also stretched out his hand and shook it with Draco. The two smiled at each other, then let go of each other's hands. Good night, Draco. Good night, Ian. After saying good night to each other, they lay down on their beds and prepared to rest. Ian lay on the bed, looking at the green silk bed curtains on the top of the bed, with a lot of thoughts in his mind. In this turbulent world, strength is the only reliance. He must become stronger. Only in this way can he protect the people he wants to protect and get what he wants. Thinking of this, Ian's heart was full of determination and determination. He turned over and looked at the moon outside the window. The moon hung high in the sky, casting silver light. Under the moonlight, the castle of Hogwarts looked more mysterious and solemn. Early the next morning, Ian was called out of bed by Draco. "Ian, get up quickly, it's time for class." Ian opened his eyes dazedly, looking at the neatly dressed platinum young master in front of him, and couldn't help yawning. "Draco, what time is it? I say, have you forgotten that you are the class leader and are responsible for taking the students to the classroom?" Draco said unhappily, "Get up quickly and take us to the auditorium for breakfast. The girls have already left." Hearing Draco's words, Ian realized that he was now an official. He quickly got up from the bed and started to put on his clothes. At Draco's urging, Ian quickly put on his clothes and picked up the wand on the table. "Okay, let's go," Ian said to Draco, and then opened the door of the dormitory. Draco said proudly behind his back, "Don't worry, I've called them all up, except for you, the leader. Good brother." Ian patted Draco on the shoulder. "This prefect now appoints you as the deputy prefect of boys. Find a little brother to help him with the work so that he can tease the little witch. Ahem, it's to deal with more important things. Is this appropriate? Slytherin has never had this." Draco looked at Ian with some surprise. "If I say it's appropriate, it's appropriate." Ian waved his hand and said, "Let's go, Deputy Prefect Malfoy. Let's take the students to the auditorium for breakfast." Ian took Draco to the Slytherin common room. At this time, only the first-year boys were left in the common room, standing in groups of 3 or 4 talking. Seeing Ian and Draco coming, they immediately stopped talking and looked at Ian. "Prefect Potter, good morning." "Good morning, Prefect." "Good morning, classmates." Ian smiled. "Now, please line up and follow me and Deputy Prefect Malfoy to the hall for breakfast." Hearing Ian's words, the students immediately lined up and followed Ian and Draco. The two led the students out of the common room, then walked through the cold and dim basement and came to the hall on the first floor of the castle. On the way, Ian was still whispering to Draco, "Hey, what's going on? I'm just a hidden prefect. Why are they so enthusiastic?" A hidden prefect is still a prefect, not to mention that you, the savior of Slytherin, were in the limelight yesterday, so of course they want to curry favor with you. Draco rolled his eyes and said with some jealousy, "Humph, these guys, I didn't see them so active during the duel yesterday. Well, they also have face to save. How can they curry favor right away? Humph, anyway, I think they are hypocritical." The two whispered quietly, and then led their classmates into the auditorium. In the auditorium, only Ravenclaw was full of students, and Gryffindor and Hufflepuff were scattered with more than a dozen students. Seeing Ian walk in with the first-year Slytherin students from other colleges cast curious and scrutinizing eyes. Of course, there was a most special look among these eyes. Miss Granger from Gryffindor was looking at Ian with an unhappy face. Humph. She was thinking about Ian all the time yesterday and didn't sleep well. Unexpectedly, this guy was so happy. Ian naturally felt the resentful look. He quickly showed a bright smile to Hermione and then sat at the long table of Slytherin with the little snakes. "You can wait a while before coaxing your wife. People are iron and rice is steel. It's important to eat first. Potter, you boys are so slow." Cassandra took the plate and sat on Ian's right. Ian smiled awkwardly. "I'm sorry to keep Miss Volley waiting for a long time. Next time, Draco and I will organize the boys to get up earlier." "I don't blame you," Cassandra snorted, and then looked at Draco, who was sitting on Ian's left. "Draco? Why is he also responsible for organizing the boys?" "Cassandra, I am now the deputy head of the boys," Draco said proudly. "Oh, deputy head boy." Cassandra raised her eyebrows slightly, then looked at Ian. "Did you appoint him?" "Yes." Ian nodded. "I think Draco is very suitable for this position. Since you're the deputy head boy, you must assist Potter well." Cassandra looked at Draco and warned, "If you dare to hold him back, I will not let you go." Draco was a little scared by Cassandra's look and quickly assured, "Don't worry, I will definitely assist Ian well." Hearing Draco's assurance, Cassandra nodded with satisfaction and then looked at Ian. "Potter, do you have any plans for the afternoon?" "Afternoon? Ian thought for a while and said, I'm going to find my brother Harry. I was sorted into Slytherin. Harry is probably still worried about me. You're going to Gryffindor to find Harry Potter? Cassandra frowned. Will those lions welcome you as a Slytherin? Ian smiled. Why not welcome me? You may be a traitor in their eyes. Cassandra said bluntly, I don't care what others think of me. I only care about my brother and my friends. Ian looked at Cassandra with a smile. But thank you for caring about me. Who cares about you? I'm just afraid that you will embarrass Slytherin. Cassandra snorted, but the tip of her ear was slightly red. Seeing this scene, Draco on the side widened his eyes. Merlin's big socks. What did he see? Miss Volley actually blushed. Chapter 19. Section 1, Transfiguration. Cassandra Volley actually blushed? How? How is this possible? He must have seen it wrong. Draco rubbed his eyes and looked at Cassandra again. Her face was still that cold and noble, but the blush on the tip of her ear could not be concealed. Draco, what are you looking at? Ian noticed Draco's gaze and asked curiously. Nothing. Draco quickly retracted his gaze. I just think this bacon is quite delicious, haha. Looking at Draco's somewhat flustered look, Ian scratched his head in confusion. Really? Cassandra listened to Draco's words, nodded thoughtfully, and then, under Draco's shocked expression, she forked a few pieces of bacon and put them on Ian's plate. Try it. Draco said it's delicious. If it's not delicious, beat him up. Cassandra looked at Ian seriously. Looking at the extra bacon on the plate, Ian was stunned for a moment, then laughed. Thank you, Mississippi. Don't be polite to me. Eat quickly. Cassandra's mouth curled up a faint arc. Draco on the side looked at this scene and widened his eyes again. Merlin, what's going on? Ian looked at Draco's expression of doubting life and couldn't help but joked. Draco, it seems that your recommendation is good. Miss Volley personally picked up the food for me. Is that so? Draco laughed dryly a few times. I just think this bacon is delicious. I didn't expect Cassandra to think so too. Ian wanted to say something, but suddenly felt a tremor all over his body, as if he was stared at by something. He quickly raised his head and looked around, just in time to meet Hermione's eyes on the Gryffindor long table, looking at a heartless man. Looking at Hermione's eyes, Ian's heart skipped a beat. Oops, he forgot to coax his girlfriend. Ian quickly showed Hermione a flattering smile, and then mouthed, Hermione, wait for me. Hermione snorted when she saw Ian's mouth shape, then looked away, picked up her books, and prepared to go to class. This idiot, how dare he ignore her for so long, and was so close to other girls. I must teach him a lesson later. Seeing Hermione look away, Ian breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Hermione should not be really angry. Draco also saw Hermione's gaze. He leaned close to Ian's ear and whispered, You haven't coaxed your childhood sweetheart yet? After the sorting yesterday, I followed her back to Slytherin. Where can I coax her? Ian took a bite of bread expressionlessly. We only have one transfiguration class in the morning today. I can sit with Hermione and coax her then. You, a Slytherin prefect, are going to sit in Gryffindor? Draco widened his eyes. Aren't you afraid of being gossiped about? Do you think I'm the kind of person who's afraid of gossip? Ian glanced at Draco. Besides, I'm a Potter in Slytherin, which is enough to cause gossip. Hearing Ian's words, Draco was speechless. But after thinking about it, Draco felt that Ian's words made sense, so he didn't say anything else. Neither of them noticed that Cassandra's expression suddenly became a little cold after hearing this. Potter, I'm leaving with the girls. Please follow me as soon as you finish breakfast. Cassandra said as she stood up. Okay. Ian nodded. You go first, we'll be there soon. Cassandra didn't say anything else, turned around and left with a group of Slytherin girls. Looking at Cassandra's back, Draco couldn't help but sigh. Ian, I think Cassandra is really good to you. Why do you say that suddenly? Ian was a little confused. Don't you think so? She actually picked up food for you personally. Draco said exaggeratedly. I have never seen Cassandra treat anyone so well since I was a child. Ian thought about it and found that it was true, but he still felt that Cassandra had some ulterior motives, so she took extra care of him. You think too much, don't you? Ian said with a smile. I think Cassandra is just cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She's like this to everyone. Really? Draco touched his chin, but why do I feel that she treats you differently? Who knows what Cassandra thinks? Ian patted Draco on the shoulder. We should go, or we'll be late. After that, Ian got up and organized other Slytherin students to go to the Transfiguration classroom together. As soon as he entered the classroom, Ian saw a silver tabby cat squatting on the podium. Looking closely, there seemed to be square glasses-like patterns around its eyes. Cassandra had already taken the girls to sit on the left side of the classroom, and there was a large empty space at the back, which was obviously reserved for the boys. Hermione also sat in the front row of Gryffindor, and there were a few empty seats on the right, which were obviously reserved for Ian, Harry, and Ronald. Ian just let the other little snakes sit in the Slytherin seats and pulled Draco alone to stand in front of the podium and bowed 90 degrees. Although Draco didn't understand why, he followed Ian and bowed. Good day, Professor McGonagall. Ian's eyes flashed with a smile. His little brother must help him to win the favor of the older cat girl. Alas, unfortunately, Hermione and Cassandra have already sat down, so it's not good to call them up. His brother and Ronald are both late again, which is really disappointing. They don't even grasp such a good opportunity. Transfiguration is really a great magic. We are honored to see the animagus form of the greatest contemporary transfiguration master. Ian's voice was not small, and the students in the classroom heard it clearly. The tabby cat squatting on the podium also raised his head and looked at Ian, with a hint of human doubt and surprise in his eyes, as if guessing how the little wizard in front of him knew that she was an animagus. Draco also reacted that this tabby cat was actually their Transfiguration teacher Minerva McGonagall. Professor McGonagall just blinked at Ian, but didn't mean to answer him. Ian glanced at the empty seat of Gryffindor and understood instantly. His brother was going to be late, and Professor McGonagall, as the most rigorous professor, must give Harry a big surprise. Thinking of this, Ian hurriedly pulled Draco to bow again, and then winked at him, indicating that he should sit in the Slytherin seat. And Ian himself walked to the Gryffindor seat and sat next to Hermione. Seeing Ian's actions, the other students in the classroom were stunned. The little snake of Slytherin actually sat in the Gryffindor seat. Chapter 20. Matches become needles. Ian's dignified and self-righteous look made Draco dumbfounded. Draco subconsciously wanted to call Ian, but when he thought of what Ian had just said, he swallowed his words again. Forget it. Ian said it himself. He is not afraid of gossip, so why should he persuade him? Cassandra glanced coldly at the Gryffindor seat, and because of the professor's presence, she didn't say much. So, under the gaze of everyone, Ian calmly sat next to Hermione and started passing small notes with Hermione. Ian said, "The children of the flower-growing family have this skill. Hermione, the cutest and most beautiful little Hermione." Hermione took the note written by Ian, saw the handsome handwriting on it. Her little face blushed and secretly glanced at the tabby cat on the podium, and then picked up the pen to write on the paper. "Why are you sitting here? Shouldn't you sit over there with Slytherin?" Seeing Hermione's reply, Ian smiled and wrote, "But I want to sit with Hermione. I don't want to be separated from you." Hermione's face turned even redder when she saw the content on Ian's note. She subconsciously looked around and found that no one noticed her, so she breathed a sigh of relief. But Hermione couldn't help but feel a little sweet in her heart. But when she thought of Ian being close to other little witches, Hermione couldn't help but feel a little sour in her heart. She thought about it and wrote on the paper again, "Are you close to that blonde girl from Slytherin?" Ian took a look at the content on the note and instantly understood that Hermione was talking about Cassandra. He picked up the pen and wrote on the paper, "You mean Cassandra? She and I are both first-year prefects, so we have a good relationship." "Prefect," Hermione wrote on the paper immediately. "Aren't prefects only for 5th to 7th year students? Slytherin is special. Each year has 2 hidden prefects, 1 male and 1 female." Ian wrote, "However, this position is only valid in Slytherin College, and the school does not recognize it." Hermione nodded in understanding and wrote on the paper again, "I was wondering why you called her by her Christian name directly. So this is why." Seeing Hermione's reply, Ian smiled and was about to continue writing something when he heard the classroom door being pushed open. Harry and Ronald appeared at the door of the classroom panting. Fortunately, Professor McGonagall hasn't come yet. Otherwise, she would be so angry if she saw us late. Ronald said to Harry while walking towards Gryffindor. Harry also nodded in agreement. The two of them trotted to a position very close to the podium and immediately found Ian sitting in the Gryffindor seat. When they saw Ian sitting among a group of little lions in a wizard robe with a clear green logo, Harry and Ian were obviously stunned. Ian, Harry, and Ronald shouted at the same time. Ian swallowed his saliva, showed an awkward but polite smile, and waved to the two. Brother, dear brother, don't call me so loudly. Do you know that you are dead now? Ian, are you okay in Slytherin? I'm very worried about you. Harry asked hurriedly. Before Ian could answer, the tabby cat on the podium suddenly turned into a witch wearing a green wizard robe, square glasses, and looked extremely serious. Ronald stared at Professor McGonagall, who suddenly appeared, and said subconsciously, "Cool. Good skills. Thank you for the compliment, Mr. Weasley." Professor McGonagall nodded politely, "But I think maybe I should turn one of you into a pocket watch, so that at least the other one won't be late." "Professor, we are lost," Harry argued. "Then turn it into a map. You don't need a map to find your seat," Professor McGonagall said sternly, without any mercy. Harry and Ronald immediately stopped fighting and ran to sit next to Ian in a dejected manner. Ian also took the opportunity to make a gesture to Harry, indicating that he was fine and would talk about it after class. After doing all this, Ian found that Professor McGonagall was looking at him gently. "Mr. Potter, can you tell me now how you know that the tabby cat is my animagus form?" Ian stood up, bowed slightly, and then said, "Professor, I read a book about transfiguration before entering school. I know that you are one of the 7 animagus registered by the Ministry of Magic in that century, and your animagus form registered with the Ministry of Magic is a cat. Although the cat's breed was not specified, today is our first transfiguration class, so I made a bold guess that the tabby cat should be your animagus form." Ian talked freely without any nervousness, of course, if his clenched right hand was excluded. What about reading books about transfiguration before school started? What about bold guesses, all of which were made up by him on the spot? Ian knew that the tabby cat was Professor McGonagall, all thanks to the movies and original books he watched in his previous life. However, he said this beautifully, and the expression on Professor McGonagall's face became more gentle. "Very good, Ian Potter, for your erudition. I will give Gryffindor 5 points," Professor McGonagall said in a gentle voice. Ian's mouth twitched fiercely, and, just as he was about to say something, he heard Professor McGonagall continue. "Oh, sorry, Ian. I forgot that you were a student of Slytherin, so add 5 points to Slytherin." After Professor McGonagall finished speaking, he looked at Ian with some regret, thinking silently. How could such a good child who is so knowledgeable, smart, and respectful to teachers not be from their Gryffindor? Thinking of this, Professor McGonagall looked at Potter from his own college again, and his eyes darkened instantly. They are both Potter. Why can Ian recognize her animagus? And Harry is 5 minutes late for the first class? As expected, children look like each other. Ian looks like Lily, and he is as smart and excellent as Lily. Harry looks like James, and he is as reckless as James. Professor McGonagall shook his head, threw away the messy thoughts in his mind, and concentrated on the class. "Okay, let's start the class now. Transfiguration is the most complicated and dangerous spell in your Hogwarts course. Anyone who makes trouble in my class will be asked to leave and never be allowed to come back to class again," Professor McGonagall said, waving the wand in his hand, and a line of words immediately appeared on the blackboard behind him. Transfiguration. Change of material form. Does anyone know what change of material form means? Professor McGonagall asked. Hermione raised her hand without even thinking. Professor McGonagall raised his hand slightly, motioning Hermione to stand up and answer. The change of material form is the change of the essence of the object. Hermione stood up and said fluently, "Any object that has been transformed will have the characteristics of the transformed object." Excellent. 5 points for Gryffindor, Professor McGonagall said approvingly. The task of this class is to turn the match in front of you into a needle. Professor McGonagall waved her wand, and there was a match on the table in front of everyone. I know this is difficult for you fledgling wizards, but it doesn't stop you from trying. Professor McGonagall said as he walked to Harry with his wand and began to demonstrate for everyone. Look, the key to transfiguration is to concentrate. You have to imagine the object you want to transform in your mind. Imagine its form and its characteristics. The more detailed, the better. Professor McGonagall said, gently waved her wand, and muttered, "Needle." The next second, the match in her hand turned into a thin and long embroidery needle with delicate patterns. Everyone applauded, and Professor McGonagall nodded with satisfaction, turning the needle back into a match, and then said, "Okay, now it's your turn. Start trying." Chapter 21. Bonus Points. Crazy bonus points. Ian looked at the match in front of him, thinking about Professor McGonagall's key points, took a deep breath, and began to try. He stared at the match in front of him, thinking about all the characteristics of the needle in his mind. Thin and long, silver white, shining with cold light. One end is flat, the other end is sharp. Ian thought, and gently waved the wand in his hand, pouring the magic power like water into the match in front of him. Needle. The match on the table trembled slightly for a few times and actually began to deform. A few seconds later, a silver-white needle appeared in front of Ian. Ian looked at the needle and couldn't help but curled his lips. Ha ha ha, he is worthy of it. With the buff bonus of the chosen son, he succeeded in one go. Although he can't make beautiful patterns like Professor McGonagall, it's great for him, an 11-year-old wizard. Ian, you are amazing. Harry, who was sitting next to him, saw that Ian really turned the match into a needle and couldn't help but exclaimed, "How did you do it?" Ian was about to answer when he heard Professor McGonagall's voice ringing in his ears. "Mr. Ian Potter, in view of your outstanding performance, Slytherin will add another 5 points." Listening to the inhalation sounds coming from all around, Ian was humble on the surface, but he couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. This is the feeling of showing off in front of others that he wants. "Thank you, Professor. I just tried it according to the key points you just said, and I didn't expect it to be successful." Ian stood up, bowed slightly, and said obediently. Seeing Ian's obedient appearance, Professor McGonagall's smile became even bigger, and then he said to the others, "Ian did it according to the key points I said, and he succeeded. I believe you can do it too. I will give extra points to the first 3 who succeed, 3 points for the second place, and 1 point for the third place. Let's start now." Everyone began to try. With Ian's example, everyone tried their best to get extra points for their own college. For a while, the classroom was filled with the sound of wands waving. Hermione even entered a state of ecstasy and kept muttering, "Needle, thin and long needle." Ian looked left and right and decided to rush to the favor of the older cat girl again, and coax his girlfriend, by the way. "Hermione, when you transform, you have to draw the needle's pattern in your mind, which will be more helpful for your transformation." As Ian said, he motioned Harry and Ronald to listen to his Mr. Potter's little class as well. You can imagine peeling off the part of the match that doesn't look like a needle, just like the excess part of the clay is removed when it is molded. And then Ian said softly, emphasizing the word peeling. Then Hermione was shocked, and the transfiguration, which was a bit stuck, became smooth at this moment. A few seconds later, the match in Hermione's hand really turned into a needle. I did it." Hermione looked at the needle in her hand in disbelief. Harry and Ronald looked at each other and blinked blankly. They were both given special treatment by Ian, so why couldn't they do it? Ian looked at the silver needle in Hermione's hand and nodded with a smile. "Our Hermione is awesome. Ms. Hermione Granger, in view of your outstanding performance, Gryffindor will get 3 points." Professor McGonagall's voice sounded again. Everyone looked sideways, looking at Hermione with eyes full of envy and amazement. The girls from the 2 colleges envied Hermione for being taught by Ian. They also wanted to be taught by the handsome guy. "Ian, you taught me well." Hermione looked at Ian, her eyes almost tearing. "Ian, you are so nice." Ian looked at Hermione's slightly red cheeks due to excitement, smiled, and rubbed her head. "It's because of us, Hermione, who is smart, understands it at once." He didn't lie. He was able to succeed in one go, not only because of his extraordinary talent, but also because of the system's buff. Hermione was different. He just gave a little hint, but he didn't expect Hermione to understand it so quickly. Look at Harry and Ronald. One is pure blood, the other is half-blood. They are not as good as Hermione, a little witch from Muggle. No wonder Hermione was praised by the Black Dog Godfather as the smartest little witch of the same age in the original book and the movie. It has to be said that Hermione's talent in magic is really strong. Professor, Hermione and I have completed the task. So, can we help others? Ian looked at Professor McGonagall with a questioning look on his face. Professor McGonagall smiled and nodded. Of course. With Professor McGonagall's consent, Ian and Hermione directly turned into little teachers. Ian was responsible for Slytherin, and Hermione was responsible for Gryffindor. The two began to shuttle among the crowd and answer their questions. Professor McGonagall looked at the busy green figures in the classroom and nodded secretly. Humble and polite, intelligent and helpful. Hey, why isn't this child from their Gryffindor? The Sorting Hat is really old. When sorting, she heard this child say that he wanted to go to Gryffindor. Forget it. Hermione from her own college is also a smart and good child. Professor McGonagall silently comforted herself in her heart. Ian didn't know what Professor McGonagall was thinking. Even if he knew, he would only feel happy in his heart. After all, he helped these little wizards answer questions and solve problems. On the one hand, he could improve the favorability of professors and classmates, and on the other hand, he could show his strength. He would not miss such a good thing. Miss, do you understand? Ian looked helplessly at Cassandra, who was distracted again. What's wrong with Cassandra? She has been distracted 3 times in this short period of time. Cassandra came back to her senses, looked at Ian's helpless expression, and a barely perceptible blush flashed across her face. She muttered softly, "Of course I understand. I'm very smart. Yes, our eldest lady is the smartest." Ian responded with good temper, and then asked softly, "Can the eldest lady show me?" Cassandra looked at Ian's smiling eyes, snorted, then raised her wand and chanted a spell at the matches on the table. A few seconds later, a silver-white needle appeared in Cassandra's hand. "Look, I did it." Cassandra looked at Ian triumphantly. Ian looked at the needle in Cassandra's hand, smiled, and gave a thumbs up. "The eldest lady is great." "Of course." Cassandra raised her head proudly. Professor McGonagall looked at Cassandra's outstanding performance and smiled with satisfaction. 1 point for Slytherin. "Thank you, Professor McGonagall." Cassandra smiled slightly, then turned to look at Ian. "How is it? Did I embarrass you?" "Of course not. The eldest lady is the best." Ian looked at Cassandra's arrogant look, smiled and shook his head, and then continued to help other little snakes. By the end of the Transfiguration class, 2/3 of the people in the 2 colleges had successfully transformed the matches into needles. Although the remaining 1/3 failed to transform successfully, they had also found the threshold and could succeed as long as they practiced more. After this helping others trip, Ian not only received the gratitude of the little wizards, but also received an extra 20 points from Professor McGonagall in the end. Of course, Hermione also got 10 points. As for the extra 10 points of Ian, it was because he chose to help Hermione at the beginning. In view of Ian's excellent performance in answering questions for his classmates, Professor McGonagall gave him an extra 10 points. Chapter 22, He and Tom are so alike. Ian's performance in the Transfiguration class made him more prominent in the hearts of the first-year Slytherin snakes. As for the senior Slytherin students, they're still waiting and watching. After all, Ian has not shown the strength that can convince them, and they will not blindly put their eggs in the basket of the Savior. Of course, they will not offend the Savior of Slytherin when Voldemort's life and death are unknown, unless their brains are stepped on by a troll. So, their attitude towards Ian is not to offend, not to flatter, and wait and see. Ian understands the thoughts of these senior pure-blood wizards, but he doesn't care. As long as they don't cause trouble for him, he doesn't bother to care about them. He knows that it is not a one-time thing to get the recognition of senior students. What he has to do now is to slowly accumulate reputation, slowly infiltrate Slytherin, and disintegrate the enemy. Just think about it. If Voldemort is resurrected 4 years later, those pure-blood families will find that the heirs in their families are all on the side of the Savior. That scene must be beautiful. Of course, this is just a hypothesis. Ian is not stupid enough to really pin all his hopes on those pure-blood wizards who may turn against him in the future. If he wants to defeat Voldemort, he still has to rely on his own strength. Strength is the basis for everything. Ian took a deep breath, calmed his thoughts, and then looked at the little snakes surrounding him. Okay, everyone, the get out of class is over now. Please give me some personal space, okay? Ian's tone was still gentle. Of course, goodbye, Prefect Potter. Prefect Potter, see you tomorrow. Prefect Potter, goodbye. The little snakes listened to Ian very much, said goodbye to him one after another, and then left. Why do they call you Prefect, Ian? Harry looked at Ian with some confusion. Cassandra raised her chin. Because Potter is the male prefect of the first-year Slytherin students. What? Ronald exclaimed. This is impossible. Prefects can only be held in the 5th to 7th years. How could Ian? Looking at Harry's still confused look and Ronald's incredulous eyes, Ian could only explain the matter of Slytherin's hidden prefect again. After listening to it, Harry's eyes widened instantly, his face full of disbelief. So, you become the leader of the first year of Slytherin? Ian nodded awkwardly. You can say that. Harry sighed heavily. He was thinking whether his brother would learn bad things in Slytherin. He was still worried that Ian would be excluded or even bullied in Slytherin. After all, Slytherin was a group of bad wizards in his eyes. But now it seems that Ian has not only not been excluded or bullied, but has also been doing well and even became the leader of the first year of Slytherin. This plot development is really beyond his expectations. Ian seemed to see what Harry was thinking and turned to Draco and Cassandra and said, Draco, Cassandra, I have something to say to my brother. You guys go back to the lounge first. He had to brainwash Harry. Ahem, it had to be wonderful chicken soup to comfort the soul. It would be fun to make Dumbledore think that they were brothers at odds. Wouldn't his personality collapse? Cassandra frowned when she heard this, but didn't say anything, just nodded to Ian. Okay, then we'll go first. Remember to come back early. Goodbye, 3 of you. Cassandra and Draco nodded slightly to Harry and the other 2. After saying goodbye politely, Cassandra took Draco away, leaving Ian and the other 3 with private space. Watching Cassandra and the other person walk away, Ian turned his head and looked at Harry. Don't worry, Harry, I'm doing well in Slytherin. Harry opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he just sighed. Okay, Ian, as long as you feel good, that's fine. Ronald looked at Ian with a tangled face. He seemed to want to say something, but didn't know how to say it. Ronald, what's wrong? Ian looked at Ronald's tangled look and suddenly spoke. Ronald looked at Ian worriedly. I just don't understand. Ian, you should belong to Gryffindor, just like Harry. Ian was silent for a while, and suddenly sighed. Maybe I really have the qualities of Slytherin. How is it possible? Ronald became emotional all of a sudden. In his opinion, Ian, like Harry, is a savior of justice, and Ian is so kind and friendly. How could Ian have the characteristics of Slytherin? The Slytherin that produces many dark wizards. Please, Ronald Weasley. Ian laughed and hit Ronald's shoulder. You're not going to stop being friends with me just because I'm in Slytherin, are you? Of course not, Ronald answered without thinking. Ian, you will always be my friend. Hermione even hugged Ian directly and said in a muffled voice, Ian, even if you were a bad wizard, I will always be with you, Ian. Ian rubbed the little witch's head without saying anything, but silently sighed in his heart. How could his Hermione be so good? Harry. Ian let go of Hermione and held Harry's hand. Slytherin is not only about dark wizards, there are also many good people. Ian directly gave examples. Although Draco is harsh in his words, he is not bad at heart. Cassandra is a little arrogant, but she also cares about me. Ian, maybe you are right. Slytherin is not only about bad people. Harry took a deep breath. You just care about me too much, Harry. Ian smiled and patted Harry's shoulder. I know, brother. Ian, you are my brother, my only family. Harry stretched out his wrist and motioned Ian to look at the little green snake he gave him. As long as you feel happy in Slytherin, that's fine. Ian looked at the little green snake on Harry's wrist and smiled slightly. Don't worry, Harry. I know what I'm doing. The trick was successful. He is indeed a genius at tricking people. Ian's study career at Hogwarts began in such a grand manner. I have to say that Ian is really popular in Hogwarts. Whether it is Slytherin or Gryffindor, Ian can chat with them. However, this also made Dumbledore focus on Ian again. He is really like Tom, isn't he? Dumbledore turned his head and looked at the portraits hanging on the wall. The same talent, the same wide circle of friends, the same likable. The portraits fell silent one after another. They didn't know how to answer Dumbledore's words. Tom Riddle, or Voldemort, is a taboo. A dark wizard who left Hogwarts. A dark wizard who almost destroyed the wizarding world. Albus, you don't think this kid will be the next Tom, do you? Phineas sneered. Although our Slytherin is rich in dark wizards, you can't generalize all Slytherins, right? He was really speechless. Their Slytherin's reputation in Hogwarts was ruined by Voldemort. No, Phineas, you misunderstood. Dumbledore shook his head. I just hope Ian doesn't follow Tom's old path. Don't worry. The kid from the Potter family is obviously not a supporter of the pure blood theory. Phineas crossed his arms and said calmly, that kid not only plays well with the twin brothers of the Golden Boy, but also with the Weasley kid and the Muggle-born witch. Hearing what Phineas said, Dumbledore also fell silent. After a long time, he slowly said, I hope I'm overthinking, but Phineas, Tom's affairs have left too much of a shadow on the wizarding world. Phineas also fell silent after hearing this. Tom Riddle's incident has indeed left a huge psychological shadow on the entire wizarding world. They really can't go through something like that again. Phineas, please keep an eye on Ian in the castle for me. Dumbledore suddenly turned his head and looked at Phineas. If there is any situation, remember to tell me in time. Phineas nodded. Don't worry, I will. Although he didn't think Ian would become the second Tom Riddle. Since Dumbledore asked him, he would pay more attention to the kid from the Potter family. At this time, Ian didn't know that he was being targeted by Dumbledore again. He still lived his own life, attending classes, studying, practicing magic every day, and occasionally visiting the Gryffindor Lounge. Chapter 23, Double Standards of Snape. Ian, don't sleep. Today is Professor Snape's class. Draco's voice rang in Ian's ears, waking him up from his sleep. Ian opened his eyes drowsily and saw Draco, who was already dressed neatly. Good morning, Draco. Thank you for waking me up again. Ian rubbed his eyes and yawned. Draco was speechless. I didn't want to either, because I promised to help you manage the first-year boys yesterday. Deputy Headmaster Malfoy, you are so dedicated. Ian patted Draco on the shoulder. Believe me, if you don't get up, Cassandra will definitely make trouble for me. Draco rolled his eyes. I don't want to be taught a lesson by her. Ian laughed when he heard it. Okay, I'm up. Let's go to breakfast quickly. I don't want to be late for my own dean's class. The two quickly packed up and took the little snakes to the auditorium for breakfast. Ian was chewing on a chicken leg while listening to Draco bragging about his experience playing Quidditch at home. Ian, you can't imagine how much fun I have flying at home. Draco's face was full of pride. That's because first-year students can't join the house team. Otherwise, I would definitely join the Slytherin house team and lead Slytherin to win this year's Quidditch championship. Wow, awesome. Ian clapped his hands perfunctorily. What championship? In the movie, since Harry joined the Gryffindor house team, Slytherin has hardly won. Ian, when we are in the second year, we will join the house team together. Draco's eyes were shining with excitement. Didn't you say you play that football in the Muggle world? Didn't you say you were the little prince of goal scoring? Then you could be the batsman, and I will be the seeker. Let's talk about it later. Ian touched the tip of his nose. When I thought about him flying all over the sky on a wooden stick, Ian suddenly felt a dull pain 3 inches below his navel. Although the flying brooms were all added with cushion spells before production, Ian still had an inexplicable worry. Moreover, as a rabbit who had lived in a flower-growing family for 18 years, Ian still yearned for flying swords. Let's ask, who didn't dream of flying with a sword when they were young? What's fun about Quidditch? Just when Ian and Draco were chatting happily, Cassandra said quietly. Ian blinked. You don't like it? I don't think flying in the sky is a very elegant behavior. Cassandra rolled her eyes. Potter, you should also stay away from this idiot. Don't be fooled by him. Hearing this, Draco jumped up in anger. Who do you say is an idiot? Cassandra. Don't think I won't dare to hit you, just because you are a girl. Hey, do you dare? Cassandra sneered and raised her fist directly. Draco was immediately scared when he thought of Cassandra's terrifying fighting ability. He sat back silently and muttered softly, "A good man doesn't fight with a woman." Ian couldn't help laughing when he saw Draco and Cassandra bickering. Hurry up and eat. It's time to go to potions class after dinner. Ian greeted the two, then lowered his head to finish the last piece of roasted pumpkin on the plate. After dinner, Ian and the other two took the little snakes to the potions classroom. As soon as he entered the classroom, Ian saw Harry and the other two sitting in the first row, and there was an empty seat next to them. Ian, come on, we have a seat for you. Harry waved immediately after seeing Ian. Ian hesitated and looked at the distance between the podium and the first row. Harry, why don't we sit in the back? What's wrong, Ian? Harry scratched his head. Don't you love studying? Isn't it good to sit here? Ian looked at Harry's innocent green eyes and sighed. It's good to sit here, but this class belongs to our dean, and he doesn't like Gryffindor students very much. Harry heard what Ian meant. Oh, you mean Professor Snape always likes to find fault with Gryffindor? Yes, that's right. Ian nodded. Believe me, Harry, sit in the back. It's good for you, me, and everyone. Harry looked at Ian's serious look and couldn't help laughing. Okay, Ian, listen to you. As he said, he packed up his things and followed Ian to the back. Ronald and Hermione saw this and hurried to follow. The four of them sat in the third row, and Ian breathed a sigh of relief as soon as he sat down. Ian, are you afraid of your dean? Harry asked curiously. I respect him. Ian gave an awkward but polite smile. Okay, Harry nodded, not quite understanding. You respect the teacher, Ian. Ian silently looked at Harry's messy black hair, thinking, I hope you can still be so calm when Snape asks you questions later. At this moment, the door of the classroom was suddenly pushed open, and Snape, wearing a black robe, walked in quickly. The black robe was lifted high by Snape, and with his lifeless dead fish eyes, he looked like an old bat. Snape walked to the podium in a few steps, and his sinister eyes swept around the classroom like looking for prey. His eyes finally fell on Ian, who was sitting in Gryffindor. To be precise, they fell on Ian's green eyes, red hair, and his little face that looked like his deceased mother. Snape looked at Hermione on Ian's right, and when he saw the obvious red mark on the beautiful little witch, the bat's expression obviously improved for a moment. It's actually nothing for a muggle-born Gryffindor witch and a half-blood wizard from Slytherin to sit together. Maybe it can promote learning. But the wizards from Gryffindor may not be the same. Snape glanced at Harry on Ian's left-hand side and frowned. He first stared at the green eyes for a while, then looked at the other person's face, and his expression instantly turned into disgusted and disgusted, as if he had eaten a dead fly. Messy black hair, bad glasses. Such people will definitely lead their excellent Slytherin students astray. Ian Potter, Granger, Malfoy, Wally, the four of you sit in the first row on the left. Snape suddenly spoke. The four people whose names were called were stunned, and Ian's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Harry beside him, and his heart was full of sympathy. Brother, take care of yourself. The four could only pack up their things silently and walk to the first row. Looking at the four people in the first row, Snape's mood improved a little. Very good. Snape nodded with satisfaction. Miss Wally on Ian's left is a Slytherin, a good girl from a pureblood family. She looks very well behaved and will not lead Ian astray. Granger on Ian's right is also a beautiful girl, a smart little witch from a muggle family, and will not lead Ian astray. Draco is his godson. Although he is a little annoying, he heard that Ian appointed him as the deputy head boy. They should have a good relationship. The friends Ian chooses will be good kids. How could they lead him astray? Only Harry Potter. Thinking of the identity of this boy, Snape's expression became ugly again. Except for the pair of clear green eyes, how does he look like Lily's child? On the contrary, he looks exactly like his BD father James Potter, especially the messy black hair. Snape thought of his miserable experience of being teased by the four men before, and suddenly looked at Harry's eyes and nose. Snape took a deep breath and told himself that this Potter was also Lily's child. He had to protect him and he needed to love everyone in his family. But Snape looked at Harry, and his expression twisted for a moment. He really looked like James Potter. Looking at that face, Snape felt that his
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.